Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Knight of the Podcast.
Roger,
Yes, Troy.
I don't think I want you to be called Roger anymore. You know what your new name is?
What, Daddy?
Close. Slave!
Oh, Master. Oh, Troy, from now on, our listeners are going to expect me to call you Master, and I love you, but that ain't happening. No way in hell. Oy vey.
You're not gonna bend over on my living room floor and to pretend to be a coffee table.
You'd have to tie me up, but man, let me tell you, I'm not a flexible individual. Like, good luck trying to get my ass hogtied, because you're gonna be sweating by the end of that one.
Oh, just like I'm sure many people have sweated while watching the title that we are covering today, because Roger, it's quite a little notorious little title. It kind of has kind of this mystique around it, because back in the mid 2000s, this came out in 2007, and right around 2005, 2006, some of the big budget horror movies that were making it into theaters, the trailer for this film played on several big budget films. So there was an anticipation about this film, because let's be honest, whether you love or hate the film, and I think we're going to definitely have a lively discussion about that, there are some pretty, I want to say, unsettling images in the film. The film does succeed in providing some really creepy imagery, and the original trailer that was attached to these other horror films and other big budget films showed some of these creepy images, but also was very smart in not really revealing a lot of what the film is. So there was a lot of anticipation built up for this film back in 2006, 2007. But for some reason, and it's never, to this day, Roger, almost 20 years later, it's never been fully explained, the film was shelved and never released into theaters, and in fact sat shelved for many, many, many years before finally getting a DVD release. But for a long time, I mean, the mystique of what happened to the Poughkeepsie Tapes, it must have been, the film must have been something truly horrifying and truly unsettling for them just to decide not to play it in the theaters. And again, it's never been fully explained why the film never had its planned theatrical release, particularly because at the time, one of the executive producers of this film, Roger, is Patrick Lussier, who directed the My Bloody Valentine remake, was editor of all the Scream films up to that point. So it had a kind of this horror pedigree around it. And again, to this day, it's kind of a mystery why this film never got its theatrical release.
I've got my theories as to why this did not get a theatrical release, but boy, oh boy, do I remember vividly seeing that trailer and highly anticipating this film. And I mean, I remember specifically the visual of who's the character of Cheryl. We come to learn, walking into frame and seeing that she's being, clearly filmed through what is a handheld camera, and then pursued through her house, slipping on the tile. There's this great moment there that was really like, I remember when I saw the trailer, it looked really just raw and unsettling, and it really captured my interest, and it's held my interest for a long time. But for some reason, some way, I have managed to avoid seeing this movie up until this point, and this is my first time viewing this film, and I have developed this intense desire to watch this film, both from my memories of seeing this trailer, knowing the story behind it not being released, thinking that's interesting as hell, thinking it's going to promise something truly shocking, because why else, in my mind, why else would they not release this other than the fact that maybe it was just too much. But the mystique that was created around it has an allure for sure. And then there's also the fact that, like, there's also this kind of viral fascination that's developed since its release, in which there are so many visuals, like you mentioned, striking visuals, gifs, clips of the movie that you'll see just circulating that moment, towards the end of the film, where you've got the woman bound up in front of the camera with the tape over her mouth, and you see the silhouetted figure waddling up behind her with that fucking mask on. I mean, it's terrifying. It looks horrifying, and so that anticipation is only like built up within me, and I was really excited to watch this. You've mentioned it a couple times now, and because of that, since we've visited a few mockumentary style movies, I've purposely put off watching it until this point, and I have saved it up until this point, because I knew it would be a big to do when we finally sat down with this movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's a movie that, I remember like, yeah, the anticipation to see this movie for the first time was so strong in me because, yeah, you are right. The imagery from that trailer. And when I saw it the first time, I will say it definitely had an effect on me. Was it anything that I felt like, oh my God, they absolutely could not show this in theaters? Why did this not get a theatrical release? No, I feel like there's been much worse films, quality wise and content wise, that have made it into theaters. So to me, it's still rather puzzling why it never got its theatrical release. But I will say that it is a film that I don't know, there are a handful of films in the annals of horror film history that I've watched, and the very first time I watched it, it kind of has that a profound effect on me. And I would say this is one of them. This film, Roger, when I first saw it, I don't know, maybe back in what, 2011 ish. I mean, it creeped me out, and I remember myself like thinking, shit. Is my door locked? Like before I went to bed, I had to go back downstairs and check to make sure my door is locked. With that said, I'm also like a huge, as we all know and love, I'm also a huge true crime fan. So this film kind of blended two of my favorite things, horror and true crime, into this tale that I will say I was thoroughly intrigued with. And knowing some of the kind of all these off the wall true crime stories from all over the country, because I mean I'm pretty well versed in all kinds of various true crime cases, and seeing that the filmmakers, I think, understood the complexities of true crime and drew certain things from several true crime cases to paint this picture. And does it work successfully all the time? No, there are some things that I'd very much have qualms with this film. But as a whole, I still think, like, even watching this last night, I shut off all the lights and everything. This movie still, for some reason, Roger, creeps me the fuck out. And I think it's just the idea that there are people out there like this guy. There are people out there as stealthy as he is, as sadistic as he is, and as hell bent on causing harm and terror, and can get into your house. And living in a big city, and hearing about home invasions, and hearing about people, dead bodies being found in fields and shit. I don't know, this film just still gets under my skin.
I would be lying if I said that there were not moments in this film that I felt the exact same sensations that you just described. Sitting there watching certain sequences and looking over at my door in my brand new house that we just fucking moved into over the weekend, and thinking, "Oh, thank you,
Woohoo,
fucking Lord."
finally.
Whew. But looking over and thinking the same thing, like, "Oh God, like how easy is it for someone to get in this house? Is it as easy as it is in some of the scenes we see here in this movie?" Because some of these moments that unfold actually feel quite natural and realistic, because a lot of us do let our guards down more often than we like to admit. But I also need to acknowledge that I'm not someone who necessarily favors mockumentary style horror, and we've talked about this, but you've shown me a few titles thus far that I have felt very passionately about. Whether it's because I loved it, like a movie like Lake Mungo, where you get a very close knit journey with a core group of central characters who've gone through a major experience, and the wonderful acting and overall just emotional undercurrent like bolsters the film, and like it takes it to a whole other level, and the horror elements and the suspense are almost secondary, enough so that you don't even notice you're missing things until they point it out. Like, that was a masterfully executed film, in my opinion. It affected me. Another film that made me feel something passionate, Megan is Missing, and I came out of that review saying like I passionately hate this movie, but you know what, for good reason, because it is a film that very intentionally and is very divisive in how it manipulates the story up until you get to the point of this big finale in which it throws something so shocking at you that you're really not prepared for it, and it makes you feel something. And for me, it brought, it made me feel rage, it made me feel anger, but it made me feel something, like I said, passionate, intense. This film, I came into this with high expectations for a lot of reasons. And the big reason, again, is because the media I have seen, what I have taken away from all the memes, all the gifs, all the visuals, is I thought I was going to get something truly horrifying. And I feel like I walked away from this film not feeling anything. And I think that's my big problem is overall, like, from beginning to end with this movie, I feel like this is a very kind of scattered and almost ADHD execution of a true crime story that is so bogged down with a barrage of characters, most of whom are horribly acted. Like, this is some of the worst acting I've ever seen in a film, be it mockumentary or otherwise. There is some really bad acting in this film, but there are so many characters that we don't really get to spend any real time with any of them, aside from maybe like one or two narrative kind of characters. Everybody kind of comes and goes, and by the end of this, I came out of this like just feeling like I don't know, I don't feel anything towards anybody, any of the stories I've followed here, whether it be the protagonists or the antagonists or the victims. Like, I just came out of this feeling kind of lame, and I unfortunately like had a really negative experience watching this movie. There are several moments that I thought were quite effective, and those are the moments that have become notorious, but everything that's culminating around it made it a slog for me to get through it. And I really, there were several points I had to stop the movie and think like, oh my god, I'm so disappointed. And I don't think we really had an experience like that together yet, Troy. Like, a film that you and I have really been chomping at the bit to see it, and then you watch it and it does not live up to your lofty expectations. Like, so to talk about it on this review today, I think is really going to be an interesting experience, because I'm really fresh off of, honestly, almost feeling like I'm kind of like, I feel like a little bit like a scorned lover. Like, I'm like, oh my god, like I was really expecting this was going to blow my mind, and it really let me down. I'm fresh off those feelings, so I'm kind of excited to talk about it, but I did not like this movie.
Okay. And that's fair because this is a movie that very much is in the realm of you either like this movie a lot or you hate this movie. It is one or the other. I've never seen sort of a kind of a midpoint with this film, and people that hate it, I've heard this film be described as cold. And one thing about this film, I guess, going into it that I kind of knew, because I had when I found out about this film and I wanted to see it, I mean, it was the anticipation to get it to see it was, I mean, just too much. And I would research the film, I would find reviews about it and things. So I knew that it was a film that did not focus on a central protagonist. I knew that I was going to be watching a film that was basically showing us, the viewer, what is reportedly real crimes caught on tape from the serial killer. So I kind of knew we weren't going to follow like a specific protagonist. You mentioned Megan is Missing, and I think that film kind of does what we would anticipate a film to do to make us want to care, because regardless of whether you think Megan is Missing is great, is horrible, is acted well, is terribly acted, you follow those two girls through the entire movie. You get to see them interact with each other. You get to see them interact with their parents. You get to see them interact at school. You get to see them interact at school parties. You spend a significant amount of time getting to know these girls, and Megan is Missing. So that makes that last 20 minutes that much more like horrifying. You're right. In this film, and guys, we're 15 minutes in. We haven't mentioned the title of the film we're covering. We are discussing the 2007 mockumentary / found footage film, The Poughkeepsie Tapes. A film, like you are correct, Roger, does not follow a specific character throughout the narrative. We get the Cheryl Dempsey character, who I guess is about the closest thing to a protagonist as we get. However, like, we really don't know nothing about this girl. I mean, what we are watching in this film, outside of, yes, the plethora of random FBI profilers and medical examiners and cops, to the point where I am not even going to try to keep track of the names of these people for this review. I'm just going to call them cop because there is a lot of them. Outside of that, we are just watching people being abducted, tortured, killed. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing as we're being told a story about how this particular serial killer is, one of the most uh, obviously intelligent ones ever to be encountered. Because let's also talk about some of the shit that this guy. I don't know how you'd get away with some of this stuff. I mean, I don't buy a lot of this stuff, but even watching all of these, people, these various agents and things, I never really got to the point where I was like, oh, I was bored, or I was like, oh, this is, disrupting the narrative of the film for me, or whatever. I was intrigued by what these people were saying, because there are, in the annals of true crime history, there are people like this. And I just, again, I really am intrigued by the fact that the filmmakers seem to take all of these different aspects from all kinds of various serial killers, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, you name it, and kind of form it into this their own kind of monster in this film that has all these traits that the kind of the best serial killers, or I wouldn't want to say the best, but the most notorious serial killers in modern era have. So it just was very intriguing to me to hear some of the discussion about the psychology behind it, and certain things he did to make his crimes more undetectable, or making bodies difficult to identify. That's kind of the stuff that I was really kind of interested in me. I don't know. So I was never, like I said, I never was never like bored at any point in the film, but I can see why those countless interruptions of these, yes, you are right, oftentimes terribly acted people, would be a huge turnoff.
Another thing I really kind of want to just get out now, because like I really think the review of this is going to move fast. It's a mockumentary, and it's like it's kind of just trucking along, yet still maintaining a very awkward pacing, which we will discuss. But one of the things that really sticks out like a sore thumb for me is like, okay, so this is what, 2007. This is a time where like digital overlays and like color spills were at like their worst. Like it was just like this really grungy style of filmmaking where people were just getting very digital with what they were doing, and you see a lot of films from that era trying to replicate like old school VHS footage. And there's some examples of films that do it very well. I do not think this is a film that manages to do it well at all. I think that they they go just way too heavy-handed with everything. I mean, the granulation. There's times where you can't see anything, and I get it. Like this is supposed to look like bad footage. Right on. I would think that if you're making a mockumentary, you're going to try to clean that footage up a little bit so I can see it. There's a lot of things that happen in this film. I don't even know what I'm looking at. And it's just this whole constant like green to blue to like color shifting to make the visuals look dated. And what it does, it ends up just making the movie look dated because we've evolved so far and what we're able to do with digital enhancements, or in this case, degrading the footage digitally to make it look older. I just think we've seen it done so much better at this point that it really makes this film look fake. Like I never, ever, ever buy that this could be a real documentary. It is trying so hard to convince people of the material being so shocking and that it is, it's legit in what it's doing, that it just goes over the top, and it loses me kind of right off the bat because it's very visually obvious that they just don't have the means to sell it to me, even down to like the audio effects. Like they take a very kind of cliche audio cue. It's almost kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like when you hear that camera bulb go off. There's a sound effect where they'll cut in like these static blips, and they'll give you this kind of screeching, shrill audio cue. But they've cranked the volume up so much in contrast to everything else that it's really just unpleasant to listen to. It's not scary. It doesn't make me react. It's just unpleasant. And so it kind of defeats the purpose because it doesn't do anything to enhance my experience as a movie viewer, and in fact takes away from it because it just feels very amateur. So I feel like this team across the board, the team that made this movie, like there had to be some first timers on this set. There had to be a big learning curve here, because from the acting to like I said, the digital enhancements, the sets, some of the fucking sets in this movie look like a high school theater company fucking built it. Like it just really never quite hits the pinnacle of, again, some of the films we've seen in the same subgenre. And then I think that's what was disappointing to me. It just seemed like it was really surprisingly amateur, and not in a way that I found endearing or likable.
Well, that's interesting because the director, I don't know if you know this, Roger, the director, John Eric Dowdle, he, the following year, just the following year after doing the Poughkeepsie Tapes, he directed Quarantine, the remake to Wreck. And then the following year after Quarantine, he directed Devil. Remember Devil, the people trapped in the elevator?
I love fucking Quarantine, and I like Devil, but God, I love Quarantine.
And then a few years after Devil, he directed what I've seen called many times one of the best recent found footage films, As Above, So Below. I don't know if you've seen that. So he, I mean, he has some heavy hitters under his belt, and the Poughkeepsie Tapes was not his first film. He has a couple before that, but to go, I mean, to have those like three, if you're not counting the Poughkeepsie Tapes, to have those three films, Quarantine, Devil, As Above, So Below, right in a row after this film, I think that's pretty, pretty impressive set of films to have strung after this one. And you're right. Maybe this was a learning curve because it looks like it was only his second film. Maybe it was a learning curve. You got on board Patrick Lussier, who had tons of experience in the genre, and I'm sure he, polished the film up as much as he could. He was just an executive producer, probably didn't have a lot of hands in the actual technical and filmmaking aspects of the project. But I just wanted to point that out because it is interesting that this director did go on to like have right in a row these titles that I think many consider to be very good. Let's get into the review. The film itself, I think, is taking place kind of in the mid 2000s. However, all of these murders and whatnot that we're seeing these tapes of are taking place in the early to mid 90s. So that is why, as you mentioned, they have to kind of make it look, they try to have to make the footage look old, and yeah, you're right, a lot of times it's really difficult to see what's going on. They utilize the static thing quite a bit, where you're getting the static like and tracking static from like an old VCR. It does get distracting. Right away, the film opens with a video footage of a funeral procession, and some videos playing of a young girl just doing various silly things. And we come to find out that this young girl is Cheryl Dempsey. Now we cut to our first of many, God, okay, the first of many kind of narrators we get throughout this film. The first one is an FBI profiler. His first name is Felton. I did type that out because I'm like, that's kind of a weird fucking name, Felton, who proceeds to tell us, the story of Cheryl Dempsey and what happened to Cheryl Dempsey and what she became is one of the strangest cases he's ever encountered in his career as a detective, and he's been doing it for 25 years. And then, Roger, we cut to black and white video, someone setting a camera down in a cemetery, and legit, Roger, pulling a dead body out of a fucking grave.
I thought that dead body was definitely going to be Cheryl's body. The way it's set up, you're introduced to Cheryl, you think she's going to be a focus. She is to a certain extent. But I really was like, oh God, they're giving us like what is going to be the grand finale as like the introduction, and I was like, that's bold. But you never end up knowing for sure who this individual is being dragged out of this ditch. I don't think it's Cheryl.
It's Cheryl.
Is it Cheryl?
Yeah, because remember at the end of the film, there's a news broadcast about Cheryl's grave being vandalized.
Oh my
and someone
God.
stealing her corpse.
I didn't see. But here's what I'm saying then. Let me just say it right now. I can't even tell what the fuck they're filming. I thought that was somebody who was torturing. Well, now that all goddamn makes sense. Oh God. Listen, they're not painting a clear picture here. You listeners, don't make fun of me. There are scenes that I was up against my TV squinting saying, what's happening? What's happening? So from this visual, you see a boot step down. It's kind of clear that it's a grave, I guess, now that you look at it. And you just see this person getting strung up and killed. But I thought it was an execute. I thought we were watching someone getting killed. God damn it, Troy. See, I hate this movie even more.
No, he's stealing Cheryl's body. To do what with it, God knows. We don't even want to think about it. This poor woman, what she goes through. Okay. So yeah, and then we get the opening credits. It's real pretty. There's aerial shots of Poughkeepsie and all this stuff. And then we fade into what is called part one, the tapes. We get another FBI agent, Leonard, who says that, they knew that there were killings going around town and there was kind of a lot of unsolved crimes, but they didn't know exactly the extent of what was happening until the Poughkeepsie tapes were found. We then move on to our another narrator, Simon, who's a videographer whose job, Roger, it was to log and watch all 2,400 hours of these tapes. He's like, oh, yeah, I couldn't sleep and I had nightmares. I still have nightmares. Oh, but then one night I decided to take some tapes home with me to work at home. What the fuck are you taking murder tapes home for?
Cannot think of a film that has more like scripty dialogue. Like the things that these people are saying, it does not feel authentic at all. It's very clear that they're trying to make it obvious that this killer, ooh, he's depraved, like he's sick, and everyone's shaken up by it. And this poor guy, here's one of my issues, Troy. This guy, what an interesting angle to be the person that sat there and watched all these fucking videos. Like, okay, if you're going to have this movie get so chock full of random characters, why wouldn't you take some of these earlier introduced characters and kind of maintain them as a through story to what I think is one of the more intriguing elements of what is this mockumentary? Like this guy, when they bring him into play, Simon Alroy, the audio visual specialist, when they bring him into play, I was convinced, I was like, this is going to be one of the focal characters that I'm going to follow for the whole length of the movie. Pretty soon this guy drops off. He appears again towards the end, but like he's only there to kind of establish just how shocking these tapes are, and then he goes away. And I'm just like, huge missed opportunity here. Another character that gives me a big missed opportunity, the fucking landlord, Alice Idrisart, or whatever her name is, because her name comes up too. This gal, I mean, she met this guy, right? I mean, unless I'm missing something else here. Unless there's something I'm not taking away. Did she not meet the guy that lived in this house?
Yeah. Okay, and Roger, I'm going to fully admit there are so many holes and issues plot wise with this film. I can even admit that. I admit I really like this film, but I can totally admit that it has major flaws with its story and whatnot. Like, yes, okay, so back to Simon. I would think that you are not allowed to take these tapes home. I would think that these are like evidence, right? That it's kind of locked in a room and you're not just allowed to take them home on your lunch break. But he does, and he says one night, unbeknownst to me, my wife put one of the tapes in. Well,
and she made it through 30 minutes.
She watched 30 minutes of it. And then he says, after that, she wouldn't touch me for a year. That's what's on those tapes.
Troy, that's the line that I knew that I was in for a roller coaster of a film, and not in a good way. When he told me that he brought his tape home, which is definitely against protocol for what he's doing, he should not be taking them tapes home. He took the tape home, left it out willy-nilly for his lovely wife to find the tape, and then like fucking Naomi Watts in The Ring, she puts the tape in, she sits down for what she thinks is maybe a light rom-com, I don't know, and she ends up watching 30 minutes of some guy massacre women. Like, how did she make it 30 minutes into this tape? These tapes sure don't seem like they're just long-winded clips of him just walking around shopping. Like, I feel like he knows when he's going to film something, he's getting to the point of it, and he's going to film specifically abducting and murdering people, and that's all. And this woman made it 30 minutes into it. Like, no wonder she doesn't want to touch this guy anymore. But still, it's very dramatic the way this is all like stated to the audience, and it's so melodramatic that, again, I don't believe it. And therein lies the problem for me. I don't believe anything any of these fuckers are saying. They're all really dramatic. They're all worked up over it, but it's so wooden and so stale that, like, I don't know, it just right off the bat, you know that these are actors reading a script.
And I think that's the thing with this film is right away. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember, Roger. I can't remember. Like, I remember seeing the trailer. I remember like seeing the images. I remember it becoming sort of a little bit of a early viral sensation. I don't remember thoroughly, Roger, if this was marketed like the Blair Witch Project was, as, oh, this is real. These are real tapes. This is a real documentary. I don't remember if that was sort of the angle they were going with it. But if it was, yeah, right away, you're going to realize, yeah, this is not that. I mean, yes, because these actors, yeah, some of them are rough. Some of them are rough, and that is one of the big issues with the film, is that so many of these narration type characters that are guiding us through the story are bad. It's just like, okay, yeah, you're telling us this stuff. I just want to see the footage. That's what I get to the footage, because
Exactly.
it's also a lot of telling, right, Roger? Like, just as things are happening, we have to stop and take a break, and we get somebody on the screen to tell us basically what we just saw. For example, right after Cutie Simon, I think he's kind of a cutie patootie, little Simon, the videographer guy. He after he tells us his wife wouldn't touch him for a year, we get this FBI profiler. I think I don't know which one it is. It might be Felton, who knows, who says that raping and torturing turned him on. And I think that these tapes are his memento. Well, no shit. Why else would you? And then he's like, oh, they were something of a homemade porn film for him, because he actually stopped halfway through the killing to switch tapes.
You don't ever see that though. Like you don't. I mean, you see a lot of tape footage, but like they do tell you so much more of what happens within these tapes than you actually get to experience, and it does oftentimes leave you feeling like you're kind of let down. Like, I mean, I was anticipating seeing some really nasty, gory shit in this movie. You see some really kind of suspenseful, unsettling, creepy moments for sure. There are several scenes that are really effective in that, right? But overall, like, aside from maybe like one or two sequences, there is not a lot of graphic gore here. There's like a lot of women with wounds on them, but there's not a ton of gore.
Mm. Which I'm surprised, Roger. I am really surprised. Not that I like am a gore hound and need films to be gory, but keep in mind when this film was made. I mean, this was 2005, 2006, 2007 is when the film, I think the film was probably planning to be released in 2007 when it was finished. This is right around the time when Saw 2, Saw 3 were blowing up the box office. And I'm really surprised that this film did not go there a little harder with the gore, because you're right. There's not a lot of gore or whatnot in this film. I mean, there are a couple of cringy moments, but gore wise, yeah, it's kind of lacking, which surprised me, because it does have kind of that notoriety to it. And I think it's one of those films that people maybe think is gorier, and shows way more than what it actually does. But after this, Roger, we get that fucking landlord, this broad, where yeah, I don't understand. Like, there's several people, Roger, that have had to have seen this guy, right? That I would imagine could be like, provide a realistic looking sketch of him. And we'll get to two more people. I mean, there's people that have seen this guy. Cheryl Dempsey's mother saw him. Like, I don't understand like why his persona is so like secretive, or like, oh, we don't know who this is, he's so stealthy. No, like, several people have seen him. This landlord, yeah, she rented him a house. She's like, this is the house where I had a very bad tenant, and then this is the house where the Poughkeepsie tapes were found. So she takes us in the house and she shows us the closet where all these tapes were found, and then she goes to the basement door. Roger, I love this. She goes, there, and then we get her staring in the camera. We get a close up of her just staring in the camera like we're supposed to. This woman, I needed more of her.
Oh my god. I needed a lot more of a lot of these people, but some of these dramatic moments, like wow, when these people like just break that fourth wall and really look into the camera and they're trying to make you feel something, they miss it. I mean, they miss it. This family that's coming up here, this whole moment we're about to have with this child here soon, these parents. I mean, everybody in this film thinks they're winning some kind of award for this movie, and they are not. And it does make for an entertaining watch. Like, a couple beers in, and I think this movie could actually be hilarious. Like, I think that this movie has the potential to be quite entertaining in the wrong ways, but there are a few things that we're going to touch on here that I do think are effective. And I need to, I don't want to just shit all over this movie. There's a few shots like, when you've got this moment with this Pam this FBI agent Pam, who comes in and she's talking about like where all the bodies are discovered, and she's going through it, and she's like, "There's 1, 2, 3, 4." She's tallying them up. There's 7 bodies buried under the backyard. I mean, this does start to feel like some of the real life documentaries I've seen on this subject matter. And there are really moments, especially the news footage. This is something that this film does right. We have seen Megan is Missing. The news footage in that movie, I thought, really pulled you out of the moment. It did not feel truly authentic, truly real. For some reason, this film, whenever it does a newsreel or a news kind of montage with stock footage, it's actually extremely well handled. And I do think the editing in those moments kind of pulls me back in for a moment. It does start to feel like the real thing.
Yeah, I feel like this film could have definitely benefited from less of these like personal narrations. I mean, not that I don't appreciate some of them. Some of them are actually pretty good. Like I actually like the stuff with the coming up here with the FBI, a retired FBI agent that's now teaching a class. I kind of like that stuff. I like his insight, but to be bombarded with it like every 30 seconds gets a little old. But Pam, yeah, the whole thing with Pam definitely reminded me of footage I've seen of like John Wayne Gacy's yard being dug up. And she does mention that a couple and their 10-month-old baby was found. And then we cut back to Simon, who the little videographer, who shows us, Roger, the tapes all lined up. I mean, we're talking, how long do you think this table? I mean, has to be, what would you say, 30 feet long of tapes? And it just had me questioning, how did all these fit in that little closet?
Oh my God. I mean, it is a really effective shot as the camera starts to pull back to reveal just how many tapes there are, and he's walking around this table. And it does make for what is the poster art for this film. It is a very effective moment. And boy oh boy, do I wish that we saw more of what was on them because if there's that many tapes, I mean, if they had to change out tapes in the middle of torture sequences because there wasn't enough tape, goddamn, we're really deprived as viewers when it comes to that.
Well, what is interesting, then kind of gets our imagination stirring, is he walks maybe about, I mean, let's pretend that this is about 30 feet long. This is fucking long. I'm going to say it's 30 feet long. A table that just all these tapes. He walks maybe about 7 feet in. He's like, what is more interesting is here's all the tapes, but what's really interesting, and he walks about 7 feet, and he's like, everything after this, which would be 23 feet of tapes, is about Cheryl Dempsey. Basically, then he goes into the we do get a lot of Simon here at first. He kind of he shows up back at the end, but here in these initial kind of setting up exposition, we do get a lot of him because he also tells us that there are over 100 hours of tapes nobody has seen except him. He's like, for example, there's all this weird balloon stuff. And Roger, I swear to God, we are gonna reenact this at the Houston Horror Film Festival. I'm gonna get you a little bikini. We're gonna blow up a big old fucking balloon in front of our table, and we are just gonna take bets on how many bounces up and down it's gonna take for the balloon to pop.
Not many for my fat ass, dude. I mean, come on. Like, good luck if I get one solid bounce on it before that thing erupts. But yeah, right here is something that I was really expecting and I was hoping to see a lot more of. Intriguing.
The woman bouncing on the balloon.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was hoping that we were going to get a really heavy balloon based subplot. It's really kind of introduced it like this is his first, I guess, foray into this whole porn fixation he has with putting people in positions of master and slave relationships. It's clear that his violent tendencies are very much stemming from his desire to have power over people, especially specifically over women, in a very and violent and hostile and theatrical way. And so when you see this moment with this gal just bouncing on this balloon, I hope she made it out of this movie alive. I don't know. We don't ever find out. But
she did not.
She did not.
They show her dead body. No, they show her dead body at the end.
Oh God, what a good one. Well, you know what? At least she has a moment in this film that she can put on her reel and and be proud of because she looks so uncertain on that balloon. But I was really hoping that we would explore that a lot further. I think one of my issues as we really start to get into the issue with the killer and just the idea of who this guy is you said this earlier. He's kind of like an amalgamation of like 30 different serial killers, like real life serial killers. Like they kind of took little traits from all of these killers that have come before him and they just threw it into a pot and they stirred it all together. Then they threw it at the wall and they saw what would stick. And like, I think because he has so many MOs, as you come to find out, and they do make it clear that he's kind of intentionally manipulating everybody into thinking one thing when he kind of knows exactly what's going on. So I get that this is maybe a strong suit for him, his ability to manipulate. But I find it really hard to kind of just define overall at the end of the day. I find it hard to define like what this guy's end game is, what truly is like his driving force here. Like, I get it. We're supposed to be viewers watching a documentary. We're not supposed to know, but it does make for a very disconnected experience with who this killer is. You see him, like, you see him wearing that goddamn mask that comes into play here soon. You see him, he's effective, he's creepy, you hear his voice, you clearly never really see his face. You can't, they don't know exactly who he is. But for being like the focal, just the focus of this film in general, like what this guy's doing and what he's enacting on people, I feel surprisingly like disconnected from him. Like, I don't really just know if you're going to ask me to define like who this guy is and what his core MO is and even his aesthetic. Like, I don't know. He's just a bunch of things thrown together. And I just don't think he's a very cohesive concept. At the end of the day, like, I don't think that the killer in this film is really all of that intimidating because there's just way too much going on and it just feels very vague. For me as the viewer, I don't feel really that drawn in to him specifically. I actually kind of find him a little comedic at times. I don't know. What are your thoughts of this guy?
Yeah, I get what the filmmakers were going for. We were supposed to be witnessing one of the most maniacal, manipulative, intelligent serial killers ever to exist, apparently. I mean, because this guy, I mean, he is a step ahead of everyone, and every little detail and everything that he does is very, very well planned. And he covers his tracks extremely well to the point where it becomes rather unbelievable, particularly this revelation that's made towards the end of the film, which I have a big problem with even being a fan of the film. And we will get to that. But like, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. They just wanted to do a serial killer movie, and they're like, well, we need a serial killer. What can we do? Oh, let's just give them all the traits to. Let's combine Bundy. Let's combine Gacy. Let's combine Ed Gein. Let's combine all these serial killers and just give him that persona. The problem with this film, Roger, is if you're watching it and expecting a traditional narrative experience where you have characters that you're going to follow one way or the other, you're not getting it with this. And I think that may be why some people describe this film as cold, because there's not really a character that you can attach to or warm up to. It's not like I said, it's not like a Megan is Missing, which makes us spend significant amount of time with those two girls. And let's take the flip side of that. Another found footage style film that focuses on a maniacal protagonist that we just covered, the Creep. We spend a lot of time in that camera with Mark Duplass's character in Creep, so we get to know him. We get to know his little quirks. This film, one of the immediate, like, I think, red flags or red check marks that this film gets against it is that there is no character really in this film. While this serial killer, in theory, through what we're told, sounds fucking scary, sounds fucking interesting as fuck, we as the audience don't get to see that because he is the one recording all of these murders. So most of the time we see him, it's through the lens of him watching through the camera. Now there are little moments, yes, where he dons the mask and everything, but that's not enough of a glimpse into his personality to really make me find him interesting. And then on the opposite side of that, there's not a character to root for or care about. We get Cheryl Dempsey, but it's kind of the same thing. We don't really know anything about her. So what this film is lacking, that I think is problematic for a lot of people that are used to a traditional narrative structure where they have characterization and characters they can follow and attach themselves to. This film is not giving you that at all.
Very well put. I think you hit the nail on the head, and you'd hinted at it earlier, but I really think like You're absolutely right. You don't get a focal character you want to root for, but you also are deprived of a villain who is truly intimidating because you see it. You're just told it. You do get to see glimpses of it, but they're often obstructed. You get to hear his voice at times sounding maniacal, but you really never get to see him ever go all out and show what he's truly capable of. It's like a thing of lore almost. And again, I guess that makes sense because this is supposed to be a documentary. So, like, I guess they probably wouldn't show you all of those things. But this is a documentary that is truly a horror film at heart. And so, when you are deprived those things, it makes for a half hearted experience.
Yeah, well, this first girl, he yells at her to pop the balloon, so we get her and her black undies and bra trying to pop this balloon. And then we fade out and we get part two, First Blood. Now we cut to that FBI training class where I really like the stuff here because this guy actually seems to me he seems authentic. Like the actor here that's playing this retired FBI agent who's now instructing the course, he actually to me seems authentic. Like I buy that he is a real like instructor and a real seasoned FBI agent. He just has that gruff to him. He basically is telling this class that if he's learned anything, it's that after what they see today, three people will go home and decide that they don't want to do this. And then we cut back to one of the previous FBI profiling agents who says, you know what? I think what triggered this guy is something had to have happened in his life. Either he lost his job or his wife, and he decided the next vulnerable person he sees is dead. And now, Roger, we get our kind of the real first tape that we are allowed to see as the audience. And it is him, the killer, who we find out this is the killer, pulling up in front of this house where there's this little girl sitting out front. So the killer gets his videotape and he goes and approaches this little girl playing with her dolls. And, he tells her he likes her dolls, and she is staring at him like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, little girl, get your ass up, run inside. Why this little girl at some point, this pigtail little girl doesn't get up, run inside, call for her mother. All she has to do is scream, Mom. She just sits there. And, she tells him, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. He's like, well, you're not supposed to have bad manners either. And then he asks her, do you want to say something to the camera? She says, "What?" He's like, "Why don't you say you're a happy, pretty little girl?" And she says no. And then there's this moment where he kind of uses the camera to look around, and all of a sudden, we hear him like presumably punch this little girl and grabs her and rushes to his car with her and throws her in. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously a bold choice. I want to say bold and predictable choice to make the first victim that we see in this film a little girl. The first victim is going to be the most vulnerable, so let's make it this little girl.
I think the setup for the sequence is starting to get at something good. Like, yes, you're right. Of course, it's going to be a child, and oftentimes it is with what becomes serial murders. They do tend to go for the lowest hanging fruit to start, and then they kind of develop their mo from there. And so I think this made a lot of sense, and I do think that when they start executing the sequence, it's very uncomfortable. I mean, sure, it's smothered with tints of blues and greens and just color distortions, really trying to age the footage. And again, I'm not buying it. But the moment it's there and it's uncomfortable, and the dialogue between the two of them is fairly well played. And when it came to the moment where the child is obviously like knocked out, whatever, and carried away, it's very obstructed. It's obviously the camera is kind of just picking up whatever as he's rushing with the body over to the car and throwing her inside. You get glimpses of her legs getting thrown in, but it's very it's very hard to see what's going on. And this does become kind of a trend for a lot of these bigger moments, is oftentimes at the things you want to see the most, it avoids showing it. And this would have been truly bold if you would have seen the kid at least get knocked out, or you would have seen something a little more shocking. But it sets up the promise or the premise. And again, not that I want to see a kid get hurt, I don't. But like, if you're gonna kick off the first major event within this film, implying that it's a kid biting the dust, and you're trying to get the audience ready for what is going to be a truly shocking experience. I don't think this film manages to do that, like, or at least this moment, I don't think it does. Like, it all happens, you're kind of like, oh, okay, I guess she just got knocked out, and then all of a sudden, like next thing you hear, it's the mother's call into the 911 phone call, and again, it's horribly acted. It's over this very like distorted shot of their family home with again another weird filter over it, and they're trying to make it feel so extreme and so intense, but what we just saw just really didn't feel all that impactful. I mean, it's sad that a child's getting killed, but I feel like in a way they almost know that it didn't hit that strong, and so they try to make everything that comes after it, these next few moments coming after it, like extra shocking and extra emotional. And I don't know, it really kind of just didn't get me. Like, it could have been a really surprising and shocking and jaw-dropping moment, but they just kind of waste it.
One thing about that 911 call that pisses me off is the operator says we have to wait 24 hours. I mean, that is such a falsity that has been spread around. You do not have to wait 24 hours. If anybody ever goes missing, you don't have to wait 24 hours. But I was like, are you serious? 911 operator, you hear this mother saying her 8-year-old child is gone from their front yard, and you're telling her you have to wait 24 hours. I'm like, fuck. But yeah, we find out the little girl's body was found 50 miles away. She died from blunt force trauma. She was sexually assaulted. And then we get that interview with the parents who, again, oh, rough acting. The mother has this breakdown that, I mean, bless her heart. I mean, she got to put this role on her resume, but yeah, I mean, it's some of these moments that take you out of the film because the acting is so bad. Like, I do not buy that these two are grieving over a child by any means. Her line delivery: "Who could rape a child? She was only 8."
Thank God, just like everybody else in this movie, they're only in the film for about 10 seconds and they never come back again. So it's brief, but oof. I mean, yeah. I mean, they're chewing on some scenery. They're really wanting their moment.
Yeah, they got it. We cut to basically the instructor telling the class, because the instructor is also showing his class these videos, and I'm assuming that we are seeing these videos through the instructor showing them to his class, and he's like, "Yeah, but that's nothing. He didn't even know what he was doing yet." And then we cut to part 3, called "Getting Better," and this is when this killer, apparently he pretends his car is broken down. This couple picks him up, lets him in, says, they'll give him a lift to the next gas station. There's some conversation. So he tells him his name is Ed. He asks him if it's okay if he films, because he's just kind of documenting his vacation. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. This couple's trying to make small talk with him, and he is directing them where to go. Hey, take this exit. That's where the gas station is. Oh, the gas station is right down the road. And the guy's driving, and we see him slowly pull out a hammer. And then, as this guy is driving, which I think, Roger, would be quite dangerous to do, he bashes the guy in the head with the hammer, causing him to lose control of the car, which to me is not a very wise move. And of course, the wife screaming her fucking head off, and then the camera does a jump, and then we get a shot of the killer from behind the back seat holding a rag over her face as he is filming it.
This setup is really strong. This whole thing of him getting in this car is actually, I was starting to get pulled in this moment.
No, I agree. It's a pretty strong setup. You don't really see serial killers go after a couple. I mean, especially this brazenly, like to get in their car, and then like not even like take them somewhere and have them get out of the car to kill them. Like, he bashes the guy in the head while he's driving. It is a really it's really interesting scene. It's a setup I really haven't seen before. So I really appreciated that. Yeah, and then I mean we then transition into some news articles about this couple, Frank and Jeanette, being missing. And then we go back to the FBI profiler who tells us that this particular murder announced a completely different type of killer in this guy, because there's nothing left of the impulsiveness that he displayed when he kidnapped that little girl. He now figured out that he's good at something, and that is killing.
I was really hoping that as that whole bit with the car progressed, like even the hammer bit, like you're right in saying that, like that seems a little implausible. That would be very dangerous. I understand he kind of understands where he's going. Like they do start to touch on this, that he knows that the gas station was abandoned and so forth and so on. But it just seems very risky that he would try to take on two people at once in a moving vehicle. And I was really kind of hoping to see more of the struggle of, like, he knocks the guy out. I'm assuming the vehicle crashes. I would anticipate she would try to at least make a run for it. I know they want to do this whole thing where they talk about him putting the rag over her mouth and strategically filming it. They want to kind of lean into the fact that he insists on filming everything he does, but it seems just a little it, it seems like more like a plot device than it seems, authentic to the moment. I was really hoping to see more like chases, pursuits. The trailer did such a good job of making some of these moments look so like high energy, fast paced, and you really don't get a ton of that. It's a lot of like stalk, attack, and then suddenly cuts to a moment and you see like what is the outcome, and that's what you get in this case with this wife Jeanette. You have this moment coming up here soon where he like wakes her up and she's still alive, and there's this kind of gruesome reveal, but you really don't get a lot of it.
Well, and I guess we're supposed to believe that the reason why he did this particular crime that is so brazen is to basically prove to himself that he could, right? Like if he could pull this off, he could pull anything off in his mind. Because yes, this was very strategically planned out, right down to where, which gas station he had them go to, everything. I mean, there's even a moment coming up where we find out that he knew he was going to kill someone that day, and he actually leaves a clue to where he was going to leave the bodies before he even knew he was going to kill. Yeah, and then we do get that video of the woman Jeanette, and it's really hard to see what's going on. She's like laying in a dark basement against a wall, and he's telling her to wake up. He's like, wake up, you're gonna like this, wake up. And it gets real creepy. His voice gets real creepy, and she comes to, she opens her eyes slowly, and like obviously she's in pain, and she looks down at her stomach, and the camera, yeah, and this is another thing, Roger, it's kind of a cop out. The camera moves down, and we do see, like, it took me, like, you said, you were sitting there and saying that you had to squint to your TV a couple times. Like I did too for this particular scene, because I could not remember, like, I've seen this film, but I did not remember what was supposed to be going on here. But if you play it and pause it, you see that her husband's head is like embedded into her abdomen, but it's like real quick. You have to pause it. You're going to miss it. And I'm like, okay, if this is supposed to be like so creepy and so like disturbing and you want to go there, show it all. We do get the reaction of the class. Like that one poor woman is having a fucking breakdown. But like I wanted to see it. I wanted to see it in its glory, instead of like a quick glimpse and then the medical examiner telling us, yeah, when they found the body, it had a male's head embedded in its abdomen.
Oh, I mean, like, and what a shocking reveal that could have been. Like, I just don't understand why they wouldn't have allowed themselves to go there, especially with the marketing campaign that they had in mind for the movie. Like, I just feel like that is a gruesome reveal, and it's great to show the after, like, like the reveal of the remains, there's a shot in the newsreel where you see like what the corpse looked like when they found it. It was all dried out. You see the man's head and her torso, but I mean that could have been one of those things that it goes down in like horror movie infamy as like the moment where that chick's revealed to have a guy's head sewn into her stomach. And the fact that they didn't show it, I was almost kind of like, I was like offended. I was like, why would you even hint at that if you're not going to give us that? I just don't get it. It's like defeating the purpose of making a horror movie to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I'm going to tell you, the second, if you pause it just right and you can see it, it is a pretty disturbing image. And like I said, I wish they would have just had the balls to go there and show it in all its glory. Because that would, yeah, you're right, that'd be disturbing. We get that FBI. I think this is Leonard, the one from the beginning. He basically says that, you know what, we talked to the family about which direction that this couple was driving home, because they were coming from like Pittsburgh and they were driving back to Poughkeepsie, and they figured out it was a 350-mile route. Based on the type of car that the killer was driving, they realized he could only get about 150 to 200 miles per gallon. So what they did was they basically tracked from where his car was parked. they went 250 miles in each direction and went to every gas station and looked at the security footage. And lo and behold, they get their first videotaped image of their killer. Now, see, Roger, this is the stuff that kind of fascinates me because, like, in an alternative life, I would love to be like an FBI agent and then investigates a homicide detective. I would love that. As weird as it sounds, but like hearing like how they do things to find evidence, to find clues, just fascinates me. So some of the stuff I really truly am like fascinated with. And you think about how smart that is, that they are able to track which gas stations he potentially went to based on the miles that his car would get, because they're like, oh, it could only get a certain amount of miles. But anyways, we get the first videotaped image of him, and it's him pumping gas. He has his hand over his mouth and he's wearing sunglasses so you can't see his face, but he very deliberately signs into the camera. And the instructor is like, does anybody know what he's signing? And of course, there's a kid in the class that has to know sign language, because he's like, yes, he just signed Red House. And he said, yes, very interesting, because we found the body behind the Red House Tavern. And what's even more interesting is that he signed this before he even met the couple, lending to the idea that he had this all planned. He knew where he was going to drop the body. He knew all of this. Everything was extremely planned out, minus who his victims were going to be.
You mentioned how fascinating this aspect of the whole process is in general, and honestly, it is. I mean, truly, like what they do to solve these crimes and try to get to the bottom of them, and in reality, it's actually rather fascinating. And I really thought that this was an interesting new angle to give this guy, in the sense that he is purposely trying to leave little tidbits of information for the authorities, which is another common trait in a lot of serial killers. It is something that I feel is very underutilized. Like, it's mentioned that certain things that he's always trying to, make himself known, make it clear that he's a step ahead. But like, I was really hoping to see kind of more things like this whole moment of him and the video camera with the sign language. I was like, that's so interesting. And they don't give us a ton of moments like that either, because most of the times when we talk police procedurals, it's a negative element of the film we're watching. But here, surprisingly, a lot of the strongest moments in this film are how detailed they get with the behind the scenes of what's going on. Like, we're meeting so many fucking people, and random people who are involved with this whole journey in trying to find this criminal, from every angle, from every aspect. We're about to meet this guy here soon who's the dismemberment expert. Like, that's so specific. He's fucking in love with his job. He seems all happy about it.
I did not know there was such a thing as dismemberment expert. I can't imagine what it takes to get that qualification. But yeah, you're right. We get introduced to the dismemberment expert because the agent, I think it's Agent Leonard, tells us that what makes this particular killer so like hard to track and like hard to, connect which crimes are his, is that he has become really good at disposing of bodies. Now we get Pam. Remember Agent Pam? She was in the backyard pointing to all the bodies. She tells us about the abduction of a girl named Elizabeth Jackson. She was abducted in Hanson County. The killer used a circular saw to cut off her hands and her head, and then disposed of them basically in different counties, making it really difficult for them to identify that this is, who this is, because counties don't talk to each other. And she says, so here in her mind, she says, here's a killer who understands bureaucracy. One thing I gained from this film, the more I watch it, and I'm going to spoil the ending a little bit, which if you haven't seen the film, whatever, is we never find out who the killer is, right? It's never determined. There's no satisfying revelation, or no, he's not caught. But I feel like there are so many little hints in this film that like lead me to think that it is a police officer, and I think they throw those clues in quite deliberately that we're supposed to think that, because yeah, how would this person know so much and know how to do all this stuff if they didn't have some intimate knowledge of law enforcement and laws? And there's even a moment later in the film. There's several moments in the film, Roger, where he impersonates a police officer successfully.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that there is a probably like a clear, coherent reason why they chose to have so many little tidbits and traits keep coming back to what is the police force, or police officers. That eventually here you find out that a police officer is framed. Like, I definitely think that if they're going to be hinting at or alluding at anything here, is the idea that it is a police officer, just because of his knowledge of what he's doing is so precise and so vast. Like, it almost wouldn't make sense for a random person to be able to just kind of pull this out of their ass. They need to have an understanding of what the cops are going to be looking for. Like, if you're going to hang a carrot in front of a horse to get it to move, you're going to need to know how to ride the fucking horse. And I think it's pretty clear that this guy knows how to ride the horse. Like, he knows what they're going to be looking for. He knows what details he can leave that still won't be incriminating. And I do think that's a very interesting element of who this killer is. And one more thing I wish they would have explored more thoroughly.
Well, this leads us to the dismemberment expert, and that's literally the title that's he's given, dismemberment expert. And he basically just gives us some spiel about how most people who dismember a body for the first time use a handsaw, but then they realize how hard it is to cut through a head. He's like, yeah, once they have to cut through that head, and he laughs. I'm like, dude, you're weird. You're weird. But then he's like, if they continue to dismember bodies, they'll go buy like a circular saw. He's like, not this killer. He's like, this one, he used them both, which really made it hard to distinguish which which corpses that were being found dismembered belonged to him or not, because some of them were done with a saw, some of them were done with a circular saw, so it's hard to pin them together. Because most killers, he's explaining, will use one or the other. This killer's using both. We cut back to Pam, who says yes. And, and we actually, during some of these scenes when Pam is talking about bodies being dismembered, we actually see footage of him actually dismembering these bodies. We are seeing the footage. We see him like hacking away. We see him like using a circular saw. We actually see this going on because Pam says, for someone so meticulous, like, why did he leave us all of these tapes of him actually dismembering these bodies? And she thinks it's because he wanted someone to actually be able to admire his work. And you hear the filmmaker behind the camera say, well, do you? And she says, no, absolutely not. Not after seeing what he did to Cheryl Dempsey.
I mean, what a question to ask a person. Like, after, I'm sure this woman has seen horrible sights. She has seen horrible, god awful things. And asking this woman, like, are you impressed? I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Like, have you seen what this guy has done? Jesus Christ. I guess not. They're making a documentary about it. But, like, bold question to ask this gal.
Okay, so Cheryl Dempsey, Roger, part 4, Cheryl Dempsey. Where to start with this one, because it's a lot of footage. We don't need to like rehash everything that's on the footage, but basically what we see is that this killer somehow, for some reason, has set his sights on this Cheryl Dempsey, because we see him watching her outside of school. We see him like basically stalking her. Again, it's never known like why he fixates on Cheryl Dempsey. It's never like there's never any interaction between the two of them before he just becomes apparently so enamored with her that he has to stalk her. But we get a lot of shots of him following her around, watching her, go to and from class, to and from the house. There's this moment where he sets, it must be like some sort of listening device outside of her house. And he's out there listening to her conversation where she's talking to her boyfriend about her parents leaving. And then she asks her boyfriend if he's ever had a feeling that something was going to happen, because she's been having that feeling because everything has been going so well for her. Dun, dun, dun. And now we cut to like footage of him like breaking into her house. We see in his reflection that he's wearing that goddamn long white beaked plague mask. I mean, this actually the stalking scene goes on for quite a while, and it's actually pretty. It gets pretty intense because like she's upstairs taking a shower. He goes into her bedroom while she's showering. He's like taping things. He goes into the bathroom, and like she hears something and she calls out. And he's like right outside the shower curtain filming, but then we hear her boyfriend Tim actually come inside. So this killer has to scramble and like duck away and hide because Tim comes into the room to ask for if she wants ice cream. We then see the killer set up the camera, like hide it, and then he proceeds to sneak into the closet, full cape and full mask, Roger, and is in the closet, like in watching Cheryl and her boyfriend have this long conversation about what they're going to do, and it's kind of creepy because if you watch the crack in the closet, you keep seeing his white mask kind of peek closely out of the crack and then duck back in. But they're having this long conversation. They decide to go downstairs to watch a movie. The killer then slowly comes out of the closet, films himself going downstairs. Cheryl wakes up and says, "Hey, it's time for us to go to bed. Can you take these dishes in?" And when her boyfriend goes into the kitchen, the killer comes up behind him and attacks him. And yeah, we get that moment you mentioned in the trailer where you see where Cheryl sees this and she tries to take off running and she runs to the front door, but she slips on the floor, falls. And then we get the silhouette of him like punching the shit out of her.
When he started entering the house, I started to kind of brace myself a bit. I was like, okay, this is really going to start getting to what I've been waiting for, especially because I recognize the visuals of the house from the trailer. Like, I knew we had to be getting close to that sequence. And it is very creepy as he's walking through this house. It's very easy for him to walk right inside. I do think that is one of the creepier elements of this film. Is like I mentioned a little bit earlier, but just how unsuspecting a lot of these people are. Like, this seems to be a suburban neighborhood. He's able to walk right in. He's filming the whole fucking thing. He walks upstairs. Nobody notices. He goes in the closet. On first visual, that mask is terrifying, I will say. Like, when you first realize he's wearing that mask, very creepy. And even the whole bit of, like, it transitions, it's nighttime, the door opens, he walks downstairs, they're sleeping on the couch, he's literally just hovering over them, filming them, and they don't notice it, and he's right behind them. And that is something that they handle pretty masterfully, this whole moment, as it builds up to what is the inevitable attack. And the attack happens, the light turns on, Tim turns around, you see him get attacked. It's again very obstructed. You don't see what happens. You hear the sound of what I'm assuming is stabbing, because you do see him holding a knife, but you don't see any of it. And that's fine. Okay, cool. It's still a good sequence. And then there's that great chase bit. It's very short. He reaches her all through silhouette. He knocks her out. For me, I was anticipating this moment because I was so prepared to be as scared as I thought I was going to be when I saw the trailer. And it has glimpses of really just greatness in general. There are glimpses of greatness in this. But when the sequence is done, what I take away from it, and this is honestly probably one of the stronger sequences in the film, it still left me wanting so much more from it. And I was really disappointed because I remembered thinking, like, when I saw that trailer, I thought, God damn, whatever they're doing with this, it feels real. It looks real. Like, this whole bit of her running and trying to get away and slipping on the tile, it seems very well choreographed, very well handled. It looks realistic. But it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't give me the full impact, the full oomph that I wanted from it.
No, it's pretty rushed. It's pretty quick. I feel like yeah, you're right. They could have dragged it. I don't want to say dragged it out, but they could have expanded on some of the action. Like because once he goes downstairs and he kills her boyfriend. I mean, it's quick. She runs away and it lasts maybe like 10 seconds before he catches her. And I know a the scene to this day, let's say, is really creepy because this is something that I think many people have a fear of, right? Somebody being in your house and you not knowing it. Like how I mean, I just sit there and I just shudder like watching this scene knowing that he's like right inside that closet and he's watching them because God, how many people have had that like thought, is there somebody, or like you go in your house and you're supposed to be the only one alone, or you're supposed to be the only one home and you hear a noise, you're like, oh my God, like how easy is it for someone to sneak into your house when all is said and done and you wouldn't know it? Like it is unsettling. But then B, I want to also say that we've sort of harped on some of the acting in the film, but I do want to say the actress that plays Cheryl is actually a standout for me, particularly in some of these scenes coming up. I mean, I buy this girl's fear, and it actually becomes pretty heartbreaking watching her go through some of the stuff that she goes through because of her performance. She's selling it. She's selling it strong.
I agree on that. I agree. I would say there's, over the course of the whole film, there's maybe two or three performances that are actually rather captivating. They're just surrounded by a lot of people who can barely get the words out. But she is one of the strongest aspects of the film, and we get to see her honestly more than I anticipated because they really haven't set up the groundwork for what to anticipate with this character or what to expect from her journey. And she does become pretty much like secondary to him. If we're going to say that there's any focal character here, she is a major point of interest moving forward. So I do feel like she is rather capable and she is involved with several of the best scenes in the movie.
Well, after he dispatches of her, punches her, we cut to a newscast about Cheryl Dempsey being missing and her boyfriend Tim being brutally murdered. Her mother came home to find Tim murdered in their house and Cheryl gone. We cut to this Jane girl. I mean, this I could have done without this. This particular little mini interview does really nothing to drive anything forward. It's just like it's an old friend of Cheryl's who's like, oh, about 3 days before her abduction, Cheryl asked me if I ever feel like I was being watched because she sometimes feels like someone is following her around. And that's real. Her real purpose is to give us that sort of background that Cheryl had a strong feeling that something was going to happen, even though we already know that because she asked her boyfriend on the phone, that same question. And now, Roger, we cut to the scene that is pretty disturbing to me. This scene right here reminds me a lot of something from like Megan is Missing, where we cut to Cheryl being revealed. She's hogtied. Her hands are tied behind her to her feet. She has these ropes around her face, and all of a sudden this killer comes in and she is screaming, please don't hurt me, leave me alone. He asks her what her name is, and when she tells him Cheryl Dempsey, he punches her. He's like, no, your name is Slave. And he asks her again, he's like, so what's your name? And she says Cheryl, and he punches her again really hard in the gut, in the side. And no, what is your name? Your name is Slave. And he's like screaming her name is Slave, basically until she says her name is Slave. And she's like, yeah, my name is Slave. My name is, and she's like telling him what he wants to hear. And it's kind of our first glimpse into, okay, we see where this is going with her and what he's doing.
And oh boy, is it heavy handed. When you first get this reveal of her hog tied on what I think is a dining room table, or at least she's proudly presented in the middle of this man's living room. The first shot is striking. I mean, it is shocking, and she looks like she has to genuinely be in quite a lot of pain. Like, more power to this actress for stepping in and getting hogtied in such a fashion because it looks very uncomfortable. You have to be very flexible to pull this off, I am sure. And yeah, it's rather shocking at first, and then you see this guy walk in, and like, I don't know, man, this was a big turning point for me because like I said a moment ago, I found him to be quite horrifying wearing that mask all shadowed in that closet. But now, like, you get this kind of long shot of him interacting with her wearing this mask, this plague mask, in this long black cape with a Shakespearean collar. And this guy looks like he's in like a community theater production of like a take of like Phantom of the Opera. And while the concept of what he's doing here is terrifying, it's so very melodramatic, and they do lean into it. They say like he loves the theatrics of it all. I see that, but it does not do anything for me to help this guy come off as even remotely scary. Seeing him in the sequence, he's so big, he's screaming and yelling at her, fluttering around in this floor length cape, and it's just, there's something about it that just really seemed surprisingly not scary. If anything, it was almost a little comedic. And what he's doing to her is really unfortunate. But this guy is just, he's not a scary entity to me. Like, looking at him does not provoke fear out of me. And it's a bummer because the way they were using that mask, I really was expecting it to be something that was consistently a horrifying visual to me over the course of the movie. But as of this scene moving forward, I do not see that mask as being something scary any longer. To the extent that even like rewatching some of those gifs and some of those sequences that I had seen up to this point and found it scary, it actually has kind of taken some of the impact out of it for me. Like, I was really kind of disheartened by how they leaned into the theatricality of all of it with this, because it just does not help him. It does not make him seem like an intimidating force, in my opinion.
I can see that. I can see that the theatrics are a little over the top. I mean, I do appreciate, Roger, that they do explain it. Like, it's not just thrown in there. I think they were smart enough to know how it was going to come off to some people if they didn't give it like its own little moments of like people talking about it, because we even get this like actor that comes in later on to talk about the theatrics and the mask and stuff. So they do try to at least, I don't know, uh, give it an explanation, give it some meaning, I suppose. Now, we do find out from one of the officers that found the body that Tim was basically butchered. His head was crushed, he was cut open from anus to neck, and his intestines were strewn all over the house like Christmas lights, the officer says. Why didn't we get a shot of that? I mean, uh, but then so that leads to profiler Fenton, one of the early profilers, saying that because of this, they initially thought that this was a work of a disorganized killer. However, come to find out, this killer carefully crafted the murder site, and how difficult it must have been to maintain like composure while inflicting such brutality on this person, knowing that it was all planned and organized. He also does mention the masks and the costumes. He's like, a guy that can remain that composed and wears these flashy costumes and masks can only mean that he's mentally ill. And then we cut to a comedia theater actor who basically tells us that the mask and this type of performance, this commedia performance, originated in 16th century Italy, where they ended up having to pass laws that you could not carry weapons when you were wearing this particular mask, because people would utilize the weapons and then not take accountability for their actions because they had the mask on and it made them feel like a different person.
I gotta bring this guy up here real quick. This gentleman, this mysterious, this makeup Ethan Steramark or whatever his name is, who provides this interesting tidbit of information about these masks and never comes into play again. Like, this is yet another character. You mentioned it with the friend of Cheryl earlier, who, you know, she's got one little moment here, she's got another moment at the end, and she really doesn't lend anything to the story. This whole bit about the mask is interesting. Okay, but like, is it really worth sacrificing this amount of time for what could have been another like horrific video reveal, to have this man from a community theater who's wearing like animal face paint and black contacts sit down in front of the camera and tell us about the history of this costume and this mask that this guy is choosing to wear? Like, who the fuck is he? Where did they find this man? Did they just go into a local like a local theater and ask this guy for a quick interview? Because he certainly doesn't look prepared. He looks ready to go on stage for a local production of The Lion King or something like that. It just seemed so out of nowhere. And it's just another example of, like I said, you know, at the start of this, I said this movie feels very like scattered and on like ADHD. I say that as somebody who has ADHD. It seems like it's always all over the place. And I just was kind of like baffled by like what purpose does this guy serve? And even the information he's giving. Maybe if they really delved into it further, I would appreciate it, but they don't really do anything with it. It's just an element of who this guy is. He's theatrical, and that's all it is. And like, moving on to the next point, it seems like a waste of info and time.
Well, I don't feel like you needed to really explain anything about the masks. In my mind, we could have eliminated that. I think the viewer can make the inference that he's wearing a mask because he doesn't want his identity to be revealed. He knows he's filming himself. Of course he's going to wear a mask. We don't need like, oh, this meaning behind what the mask is. And like, because that doctor or profiler Fenton says he thinks the guy wears a costume because he lets him draw out the killings and then makes him feel like he has alleviated any responsibility for the actual killings because he is disguised. I don't know. I think that's stretching it. I think the guy wore a mask because he doesn't want his face to be seen. You know, it can be as simple as that. Like you could have eliminated all this stuff. We get another moment of Cheryl chained in the basement, and she's, of course, crying. Killer comes in and asks her what she's crying about, and she says she wants to see her mother. And this is when he starts screaming at her that he killed her mother, killed her whole family. And she's like, no, no, you didn't. And he says, yes, and I want you to say that you're happy that I killed your family. And she says, no. And he's like, what did you say? And he grabs her off of the chains and he proceeds to drag her over to a giant laundry sink and shove her head underwater several times, telling her that you need to tell me you're happy I killed your family. And he does it over and over again until she finally tells him she's glad he killed her family. And he's like, why? She says, because I didn't like them. Who do you like? I like you. Thank you, master. Thank you. Again, I can see where it's heavy handed, but all I do in this scene is I feel so terrible for this woman because her acting here is pretty top notch and she really makes you believe it.
I mean, she's good. She is good. I'll say it.
And you can slowly see like her descent into what we want to call what Stockholm syndrome, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and she's definitely not my issue here. I guess. I guess like I'm stepping back. I'm looking at this moment and like, what they choose to do in her journey of torture with this man, and all the things he puts her through. Like, she's getting waterboarded, and we've seen it a million times before, and she's selling it, but literally he's got the camera standing on a tripod, I'm assuming, filming the whole thing, and he like walks her over, he puts her head in the water, he does it 3 times over, and then she's pleading for her life, he's making her say that she's happy her family's dead. And I'm like, I literally was thinking in the moment of watching this, I was like, I have seen so many independent films that I have seen this exact setup filmed. Maybe it wasn't trying to be the POV of like a mockumentary, like, or a documentary film, or like, a POV of a VHS camera, but like this does not look any different to me from every other backwoods movie that's got some girl hogtied and tied up to a chain in the middle of a fucking basement and some guy starts dumping her head in water. I mean, a movie called Voodoo Rising, same thing happens, shot the same way. And I'm like, I get that this is supposed to be this guy's hidden tapes, but like, I don't see what about this, or at least this moment, is making this feel at all special or supposed to be any more scary than anything else I've ever seen. Like, it's kind of lame. Like, she's giving her all, but he's just dumping her head in water, chaining her up, and like I don't know. It seems like standard fare. Like, this is no better or more exciting or more well done than anything else we've seen from movies of, honestly, of lesser quality. The only thing that's good is she's giving it her all. But I don't know. Like, I thought this was a really fucking lame scene.
I think the issue is a lot of these what should be pivotal scenes, Roger, seem pretty rushed. I mean, her giving in happens real quickly, and we move on. There's no extended, him really having to drag it out of her. Because it's also mentioned later in the film all of this torture that she endured, and we don't see any of it really. We see her get punched a couple times, and we see her head being held underwater. But apparently, all this horrific shit was done to her that we never see, we're never privy to. Now we cut to Cheryl's mother, another terrible actress, on the news pleading for the person to bring Cheryl home. This woman could not seem to give two shits unless her child is missing. She's very monotone. She's like, please bring my Cheryl back home. She's standing outside her house. We see the video of the killer actually approaching her, and we hear him say, ma'am, if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. She said, oh, thank you. And then he like stands there and she stares at him, and then she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And he laughs at her and like walks away. I'm like, what the hell? And then we cut to her she's saying, oh, I knew it was him. I should have went after him, but I was scared.
What the fuck, lady? Okay. So I've been annoyed with this movie up to this point. This is the point in the film that I actually got upset. And I paused the film and I sat there and I thought, I'm mad. Because, listen, this woman who cannot act. Like, I mean, if there's one thing you said tonight that sticks out, Troy, it's that this woman is really struggling to convey emotion in this film. So there's this whole moment. She's just standing forlorn on her patio, and he just casually strolls up, and he just says, "I'm so sorry." And like, first thing I, as this woman, would say is like, "Please stop filming me. I'm mourning the disappearance of my daughter." But he's like, "If there's anything I can do," and it implies to me like, okay, well, like, I mean, if I was the mother, I'd be like, who the fuck are you? Like, I mean, thanks, I guess, but like, mind your fucking business, keep off my property. The moment of realization, though, when she apparently realizes who this guy is and what, you know, what his relationship is to his daughter, to her daughter, being the guy that abducted her. I mean, listen, I, I have so many issues with this moment. She looks at him and she's like, wait, you're and I'm like, who is it? Like, in my mind, I'm watching it, I'm like, is she realizing, does she know who the guy is? Is this going to be like a shocking revelation? No, she somehow telepathically is able to connect the dots that this man is her daughter's abductor, and he starts to just like laugh maniacally and run away. There's like people on the lawn, you know, people are like walking around, like helping, searching for the body. If this woman would just scream, if she would just say, get that man, I'm confident that people would have run to her aid and captured him. And instead, she was too scared. Bitch, your daughter's missing, and your daughter eventually loses an arm because you are scared. Like, fuck you, broad, for not having the cojones to say something when you suspect that this fucker has abducted your daughter. I'm sorry, that's bad parenting. You are a horrible woman and a very bad actress.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I've always wondered like how she knows it's him, and I guess him laughing maybe clued her in that it really is him. I don't know. It's such a weird. She doesn't seem like she's scared when she's like. And this is a big. This woman, she could have chased him down. She could have chased him down. This isn't a small. This isn't
Full
a small.
sprinting. I mean, talk about parental instincts. They talk about women lifting trains off their babies when they've been crushed, or like whatever, you know, a car falls on a child and a woman gets superhuman strength. I'm convinced that this woman could have stepped up and done something about this. And she stands there wide eyed, eyes like dinner plates, saucers, looking at this guy, and she doesn't fucking move. And I honestly, Troy, I laughed. Like, when I realized what was happening, like, I laughed. And that is not a good response for this movie, because there is not a single lick of humor in this film. Anytime you're laughing at this movie, it's not what they wanted out of the viewer.
Yeah. Well, and also, Roger, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, she saw him. Like, there are several people throughout this film that see this man. Like, I'm just wondering, like, how is he such an enigma when several people see him? I guess they do flash that she did do a sketch, because there's a sketch that pops up of Cheryl and then a sketch next to him. I'm assuming they got that from her, but like, she's not the only one. Like, this guy is not, for as much as he's trying to hide his face, several people see him. Okay. So now in the basement, Cheryl's tied up because her fucking mother didn't chase this man. She's tied up. He brings her some water. And then he asks her, if I take this gag out of your mouth, will you do something for me? And of course she agrees. And what it is, he wants her to put on this Swiss Miss dress. This reminds me of like Swiss Miss, the hot chocolate girl, right? Is this like a Swiss dress?
It's like a bar wench with that fucking rubber mask.
Okay, what is with that? And that rubber mask, I'm sorry, Roger. This rubber mask is fucking creepy as fuck. I don't care what but this fucking thing is creepy. And to hear her little one of those most disturbing things about this movie for me is hearing her little cracky, mousy, defeated voice talking through this fucking mask. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, the visual of the mask is, again, is rather creepy when they use it right. But it doesn't seem like it's necessarily inspired. It's not like something that he's done to anybody else before. He just puts this mask on her. Sometimes she's wearing it, and then that's like all it is. I feel like someone had the mask and they're like, boy, this is creepy. How can we incorporate this? And someone was like, let's put it on her for the rest of the movie. And that's I mean, because it's not tied to anything. It seems uninspired. It's creepy, but it's not rooted in anything here.
And it lends the question of like, if he was so infatuated with Cheryl, you would think her looks would have something to do with that. So why is he now covering her up with this creepy mask? Unless I don't know. I don't know. It's puzzling why he makes her wear this mask. We then are told that by the summer of '93, the area has really started to feel the effects of this killer. And Fenton, Detective Fenton or FBI agent Fenton says, usually when this happens, killers will either one, leave the area, will give it a rest for a while, or just basically start killing maniacally until they get caught. He says this killer did something completely different. He changed his MO. And now we get part 5, a new MO, which Roger, I mean, this MO is basically he now targets prostitutes, picks them up, kills them, leaves them in a field. And now he gets the nickname the Water Street Butcher.
I mean, like I mean, it's smart what he's doing. He's completely shifting his target and making it seem like it's a completely different murderer. I guess to still get his kicks so that he can, in the meanwhile, go back and occasionally kill someone who's not a hooker, and not have it traced back to him. So I mean, I guess that's like an interesting, bold choice. I feel like he's not the first one to come up with this revelation. Like they're all very impressed with this. But I feel like that seems like a pretty natural instinct for someone who's killing people on the regular, trying to be like, oh, whatever I can do to keep them off my tail. If I'm going to have to kill a couple hookers, I'm going to kill a couple hookers. I mean, and then I'll go back to, I don't know, breaking into random suburban houses and abducting teenage girls. It's all kind of the same thing when no matter how you shake it. He's still killing broads. It's just some of them are streetwalkers and some are not.
Well, we do get several moments of like Cheryl being tied up wearing that fucking mask, having to listen to him kill these prostitutes in his basement. And what we find out is that he is pretending to be a cop and arresting these prostitutes, and then the ones that he arrests end up dead. Now we get this moment, Roger, where we cut to the basement. There is a loose woman.
Both figuratively and
Well, she's both figurative.
This is a woman who's been rode hard and put away wet, and you can tell from multiple angles. I mean, down to the ensemble she's wearing. But yeah, a loose woman indeed.
Loose running around the basement, and while poor Cheryl's tied to the wall, and this woman's asking to help, and all Cheryl can do is say, "No, he won't like it. He won't like it." And of course, he comes down and like grabs this woman, beats the shit out of her, and ties her to a pole. And then he begins to scream at Cheryl for like wanting to help her. And Cheryl's like, "No, master, I did not want to. I would never do that." And he's like, "You need to be punished." And he pulls out this giant butcher knife, and like she's screaming. He's like, "Here's your punishment." And he goes and whispers something in her ear, tells her what she has to do. He unties her, and Roger, she immediately goes over and from behind and like cuts this woman's throat.
An interesting angle to throw at us. I gotta admit, at first, when it first comes up on the shot of that woman trying to climb out the window, I didn't know what was going on. Again, with the dark footage, and I really like. I saw who ends up being Cheryl tied up. She's on the left side of the frame, and I was like, who's that busty, dark-haired woman with the fawn eyes who's looking all panicked? And then I'm like, oh, that fucking rubber mask. Like I didn't think the mask was really going to become such a thing, but it's a thing now moving forward. She's wearing this mask. The idea of forcing her to kill, I think is a really interesting concept. And another thing I wish they would have explored further, because this is the only time that you really see Cheryl have to go to this extreme for him. I'm sure it's implied she's done it other times, but you never really see it. And I thought this was a really interesting angle for both of these characters. I really was hoping to see more from it. It's not really explored any further.
No, it's not. This is the only moment we get, and I was actually really surprised, Roger, how easily she does it. Like there's zero hesitation. So I'm wondering, like it's either A, she's done it before, or B, he has her that. I mean, he has her that beat down. and that wrapped around her finger that she's going to do anything he says so quickly. And I'm assuming, it leads into all this other torture that we find out that she's endured. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, as she's been through hell, and now anything that he tells her to do, she's going to do. He has this woman. I mean, she is. Whew. I guess they're finding these bodies. The medical examiner says the bodies were badly mutilated of these prostitutes to cover up bite marks. Apparently he bites these victims after he kills them, and we do see like shots of him cutting flesh out of these women, and they were also all sliced from mouth to ear, which is something that kind of reminded me of like the Black Dahlia. I believe she was sliced from mouth to ear as well. And he's leaving these bodies in a field, like just like the Black Dahlia was found. We also find out they were raped post-mortem, and they have found matching sperm on 4 of the bodies. This leads to a moment, Roger, that I could do without this moment. I'm like, oh, it's interesting in theory, but I don't know. It really didn't do much to drive the plot. I think it's just a way for them to incorporate Ted Bundy into the film, because that instructor, Mike, tells his class about the time he got to interview Ted Bundy, and he gave him some insight. Now we cut to the actual interview. It's like a security camera, him sitting in, I'm assuming, Ted Bundy's jail cell or a jailhouse with Ted Bundy, and he's interviewing Bundy, who asks Mike, "Hey, did he rape her before or after?" And Mike's like, "Before or after what?" "Before or after he killed her." This whole insight is that basically, if you find a fresh dump site and you know that your killer has been having sex with bodies post-mortem, keep it quiet, because he's going to return to have sex with the body. So keep it quiet and stake it out, because he will be back.
I didn't even hear any of that, to be honest. I was like struggling. I mean, they're layering on a lot of audio noise and static when you're watching a lot of these tapes, but like half of the shit that Ted Bundy said there, I couldn't even fucking hear. So I'm happy you took that away from it. But yeah, I think that maybe they're trying to pander for the true crime fans. That they actually have an interview with Ted Bundy. Obviously this is an actor playing Ted Bundy. I just find it so random that this guy's like, and I sat down with Ted Bundy himself, and I got a little feedback. Like, and I'm like, was he that accessible to you, sir? That you could just saunter in and have a sit down conversation with this guy? I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about Ted Bundy to know if he was in cahoots with the cops at this point, or if he would gladly just give some information on his suspicions of what this guy's MO is. But it's so out of nowhere. Again, never revisited. It just seemed like a really random decision to like throw this in there, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it seems like something Ted Bundy would do. Ted Bundy always liked to play that he was smarter than everybody else. So I could see him definitely trying to give insight to cops about specific killers and murders and stuff, because he was just super arrogant, and he loved the attention. So I buy that Ted Bundy would do this, but like, yeah, just to throw it randomly into this film, I'm like, okay, that's kind of odd. It's kind of odd. Now we cut to this scene, Roger, that it's unsettling because we don't know where it's going to go. It's these 2 Girl Scouts that show up at the killer's house, and he answers the door. He's filming. They're selling cookies. He says if they come in, that he will buy some cookies. They say they're not supposed to come into a stranger's house. He says, well, I'm a cop. He using the cop thing again. So they agree. I mean, it's a whole awkward exchange where the girls come in. They sit on his chair in his living room. He offers them sodas. He's asking them real weird questions like, did they ride their bikes there? Did they tell their parents where they were going? And we're thinking, oh my God, we see where this is going. Is this film finally going to go there and do something like, bold and brutal and have them kill these little girls on camera? Unfortunately, not that I'm saying unfortunately, not because I want to see little girls killed, but like it's building up and I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for something to happen. We hear noises in the basement. The little girls hear it. He tells them it's a raccoon, asks the little girls if they want to go down stairs. The one says, no, I want to go home. And he basically says, okay, you guys should probably go. I'm not buying cookies today. And he lets the girls leave. That's it. I mean, the tension, there is some palpable tension that's being built up in the scene, and then it just kind of goes.
Oh man, like And there's so many little things like, and I'm sure this was intentional. Like I think they wanted to build it up, build it up, build it up, and then not have it go anywhere. But like I think that's been a lot of the moments over the course of the film at this point. So it's starting to feel disappointing. But everything from that, him offering them the cokes, and they're sitting there drinking the soda. I'm like, God, he's drugging these kids. These kids are both gonna die. Asking them where they're from, like you could totally tell that he's starting to set the groundwork to see like, oh, how easy is it going to be for me to abduct these kids and kill them and not have you know the cops on my tail right away, because they're both saying they're from the area, or at least the one is. The other one's not local. So they're adding these little tidbits that make you think he's really going to do something sick and twisted with these two kids. And then obviously there's a noise in the basement. This whole thing about the raccoon. He asks them if they want to go down and see the raccoon. Obviously these children do not want to see an angry raccoon. They say no, and they end up leaving. And like, I'm happy these two innocent Girl Scouts with their cookies are able to get away unscathed because they're babies. But like, I've just been kind of one after another been like let down with the outcomes of several of these sequences, and I keep expecting something really big's going to happen, and I thought this was going to be it. And like, not only do both these children survive, like at least kill one of them, but like it's just completely void of any outcome that's even remotely violent or shocking or surprising, and it felt like such a wasted opportunity.
Well, and it's two more people that saw him, right? I keep saying that all these people throughout the film actually see this guy. Yes, they're little girls, but I'm assuming they could remember what this guy looked like, give some sort of. And I know these tapes were found years later, but still track these little girls down. Get a sketch, because they actually sat with this guy. But then it's revealed, okay, so there's a coffee table in front of them the entire time. When these little girls leave, Roger, the killer pulls the cloth off the top coffee table to reveal that it's Cheryl the whole time, on her hands and knees, still in that mask, being forced to look into a hand mirror that's on the carpet below her face. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's just more conditioning for her, because like she heard these people in the house and she kept quiet. Like she could have screamed, go get help. No, he knows he has her exactly where he wants her at that point. She's not gonna budge. She's not gonna ask for help, even when help could produce itself. Even if it's two little girls, well, they could have ran out of the fucking house and got help. But Cheryl sat there quiet as a mouse the whole time. He does scold her for not tying it up. He's like, "You felt pity for it. You." She's like, "No, I'm sorry, master. I thought I tied it tight." And he's like, "No, you didn't. You wanted it to get away." She's like, "No, master. I would never betray you." With their squeaky little mousy voice, it's so sad.
Yeah, it is very interesting watching her progression, which does very much feel in line with what we've seen from a lot of individuals who have been through, similar treatment. Being from Cleveland, we have, the whole Cleveland abduction, the three young women that were kept locked in a basement for like, what was it, like fucking 14 years or something crazy. Crazy. Yeah, big to do. Big to do when that got discovered. But yeah, you often think like, when does someone get to a point where they fear the wrath so much, or whatever is going to come from their attempt to escape? There's enough fear implemented in them that they would rather just submit themselves to a life of torture than even attempt, making a run for it, screaming for help. Whatever would have come from that situation, maybe I would have died. But I mean, holy shit, I would hope I would still have enough fight in me to at least flip that fucking table over and just run out of the house screaming. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it is kind of heartbreaking. And for her character's journey, it's the one thing throughout the course of the film that, even though I think there are a few voids, a little gaps here and there that I would like to have seen filled in understanding her processing all of this. I would like to have seen a little bit more from it. It is really kind of tragic watching what's happening to this poor young woman.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it definitely makes you think, like, how do you get to that point where you just become so complacent and just like you're yeah, I think most of us would say we would never do that. We would never get to that point. We would do whatever we could to survive. But I don't know. You're right. There are several cases where people have done exactly what she's doing, and it is interesting. It's one of those things that make this film, despite some of its flaws, quite interesting in my mind. Is Cheryl's kind of journey, and where it leads is even kind of even more heartbreaking. We now get an FBI agent who says they now have found 10 bodies, 8 of them with matching semen. And then they had a breakthrough because a glass with a fingerprint and DNA was found at one of the victims' apartments. So they run the prints and the DNA, and Roger, it fucking comes back linked to a police officer. We get it his partner even. He's like, it came back to my partner, James Foley. Police then, of course, arrest him, search his home and vehicles. They find blood, jewelry from the victims. They realize he was also in the area during the murders at the same time. He's arrested, and we find out that the state is seeking the death penalty. We get all the. I mean, this comes hard and fast. We get an interview with his son who talks about how devastating it was. His son basically loses his entire life. He drops out of school because of this. He lost his job. The prosecutor, she's on there saying, yes, of course he had no alibi. He was a cop who could ride around in an unmarked police car all he wanted. And also, he frequented prostitutes. And one of them, I guess, in court testified that he was there during the scene of one of the abductions. I don't know. His attorney also expressed his frustration that he refuses all plea deals. And then we get like a montage, Roger, of just like police finding the bodies, Cheryl's voice, people being abducted. And it is announced that he was given the death penalty and now he's going to be executed. And we get a reenactment of his execution, Roger, where we see that woman bouncing up on that fucking balloon while he's being injected with lethal injections. And he actually dies on September 9th, 2001, which becomes significant.
There's a lot happening.
There's a lot, and I sped through it, but I have a huge issue with this, but I mean,
Troy.
I guess just go with it because it's a film, but like this seems so implausible to me. They even try to give a little bit of an explanation of like how how the killer would have got his semen, but it's still, there's that much semen that he could spread it over 8 bodies, and like where did he get his blood from, and how did he get the jewelry? And I like this little twist. I do like it a lot. I like where it goes. I like the idea that someone was so could frame another police officer so meticulously. But let's be honest, this is bullshit. This could never happen.
Well, and also, Troy, like, let's be real here. You and I are nearly 2 hours into this review. We are a good chunk of the way through this movie. And this twist comes out of fucking nowhere. And, like, I can appreciate that, for the sake of keeping us on our toes. But we are introduced to this officer and kind of just rush through an explanation of all of these things that they were suddenly finding that linked this officer to the murders. In a way, I almost thought, I was like, is he the killer? I was like, is this what they're going to do? Because that would be really fucking lackluster. But they're moving through it so quick that like it feels like they're now at a point in the film that they should be devoting some more time to this. But we've had so much exposition, so many random characters. We're getting introduced to new characters, by the way, at this point, one after another. People I don't know, people I don't fucking care about, people who are just so fucking unnecessary. Bing, bang, boom, characters left and right. And it's just like, there's so much excess here. If they could have just skimmed some of this out and maybe given this development some more attention and some more weight to make it a little more plausible, because you're right, these things that they're saying about like the sperm bank, he made a donation to a sperm bank. Okay, but how the fuck did this guy get it? Like, how did this guy have access to all of these things? And I'm sure that's one of the things that makes him so intimidating, and probably one of the reasons that you and I both think it is fair that it links to him being a cop, especially like knowing when this guy went on vacation, all of the things he knows about this officer who he's framed. But like, it's so little to go off of that this feels just really like, you're right, it feels rushed. It feels like a complete like left turn out of nowhere. And I don't know. I just don't really think. I almost feel like they could have pulled out this whole framing subplot and just kind of kept moving with the killer up until what the big final revelations are. And it maybe wouldn't have necessarily hurt the film at all. Like, yeah, it's a shocking reveal when we learn that this guy was in fact not the killer, but like they rushed through it so quickly that I kind of knew that had to be the outcome. There's no way that they're going to give us the killer's introduction and make it something that's so like just breezed by it. There's no way. There's no way without it being bad storytelling. You know that this has to be some kind of big shakeup, and it's just it feels really kind of empty and just unimportant in the great scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I like the idea. It's just super implausible. Like how this killer was able to pull this off and like to the point of getting this man convicted and put to death. Like, come on, like I said, we've people. I don't know, but we find yes because after he is killed by lethal injection, his partner gets a letter in the mail. And he opens it up, and it's a map printed from MapQuest with a circle on it that says "Missed One," and it's the location of another body. And we do get this moment that I find kind of creepy of a bar. The killer is taping a broadcast at a bar, which is about Foley's being executed. And as he moves the camera, we see that sitting across from him is Cheryl. So now he is. I mean, he's taken her out in public, and she is not trying to run away. I mean, this is how far gone she is with this whole thing, and it's quite sad. It's quick, but you definitely see it's her. Basically, they do a DNA sample in the body, and it comes back to the Water Street butcher. So they don't know how this is possible because she was just killed, and he's been in prison for years. Again, they throw in this. Well, we don't know what's happened. He did go to a fertility clinic years before. How would someone steal his sperm? Like, do you realize how you'd have to plan? Like, you'd have to pick this guy. You'd have to know he went to a sperm clinic. You'd have to break into the sperm clinic, know where they kept the sperm, get enough sperm to plan on 10 different. I mean, come on, come on.
It is just so far fetched, and I don't know. I just feel like it's another kind of wasted opportunity because kind of circling back to what you said, like I like the idea of what's at play here. It's very interesting. And honestly, like even the reenactments, the news footage, yet again, like leading up to like him being, eventually killed via lethal injection. Like it's one of the more striking visuals in the film. The reenactments are probably the best looking things in this movie, but it just it's such a brief chapter in this story that it feels less important than it really should be, and it really just required a lot more attention to detail that we do not receive as the viewers.
No, it's quite rushed. So yeah, the court clears him of the crime, and an article was going to be printed on the front of the paper. But lo and behold, 9/11 happened 2 days later. And so the article got pushed back to the 6th page of the paper, and nobody really even knew or discovered that he was not the Water Street Butcher. His son even mentions, people still ask me if I'm related to the Water Street Butcher. He's like, I have to tell them that James Foley was not the Water Street Butcher. And even the editor of the Poughkeepsie newspaper, he's like, any other time in American history, and this story would have been all over the place. It would have been national news. Serial killer uses a justice system to kill a cop. I mean, how wild is that?
We get that editor. We also get this Dr. Dailong, who each of these people only have like one moment where they deliver like three lines and then they're gone forever. Like all of these people, I don't need them. I don't need all these little like exposition moments, and it's really like not giving me anything. Like you're like this guy that you're talking about, this news editor. Like honestly, like okay, he's stating an interesting point, but in the sake of the great scheme of things, like what is this doing to add meat to the story? Nothing at all.
I agree with the editor. The idea of a serial killer using the justice system to kill a cop is quite intriguing. It's just like they brush over it so quickly here that it just we realize as the audience there's no way that this would have really happened the way that they're saying. It's implausible. And then of course Agent Felton returns and says that this killer created the Water Street Butcher persona to put the public's guard down, because the public thought that this guy now was only killing prostitutes, so they were safe. And now, Roger, we cut to the killer picking up this pleasant English accent woman on the side of the road, needing assistance because her car breaks down. It's obvious that she must think his car looks like a cop car, and he must be dressed like an officer because she calls him officer. She's like, "Oh, thank you, officer." And she wants to get in. He's going to tell her he's going to take her to a gas station, and he tells her to get in back because he has too much stuff up front. And his car does have like that cage divider that you would expect a police car to have. And they're making small talk when he drives past the gas station. Of course, she gets nervous. We've seen this before. It's like Annie in Friday the 13th. Isn't that the road back there? He's like, yeah, I guess it is. But he keeps driving. And, he begins to taunt her. He's like, why did you call me officer? She's like, well, I thought police officers like to be called that. He's like, well, I'm not a cop. And of course, she's getting more nervous, more nervous. She's like, that's not funny. He says, it's not supposed to be. He says, who are you? And he responds, I'm a butcher. And of course, she freaks out. She's pleading. He drives. He pulls over somewhere. He gets out. I don't know what he's doing. Is he taking a piss or something? But she is like freaking out, like screaming. And there's a moment where he tells her he'll make a deal with her. He'll pull over, rape her. And if she's good and doesn't, fight him, she'll let him live. And she says, okay. He's like, yeah, you expect me to believe that? And right before he gets out of the car, when he pulls over, he says, you know what? To be honest with you, after what I'm going to do with you, neither one of us is going to want you alive. And like I said, I think he gets out to pee or something, and she's like screaming, freaking out. I mean, it's quite an ordeal. And she's good as well. I buy these screams. She is freaking the fuck out.
I would say this is probably my favorite moment in the film. Um, there have been a lot of sequences here where the usage of the handheld camera has really, I think, proven to be kind of a negative overall for some of the impact that they're trying to translate to the viewer. Like they keep, like we've said, they keep cutting away, they keep not showing things. This moment, when they choose to let it linger on her in the backseat of this police car through like the metal grating, seeing her face as she starts to realize what's happening, the fear in her face. The actress is extremely good. That light, gentle British accent making her seem all the more just like delicate and honestly, just you feel for her. There's a lot of fear that's translated in this moment. It's some really strong acting, which I wasn't prepared for because everything had been oftentimes so bad up to this point, that this was like a welcome breath of fresh air, and she is very good. I feel for her in this moment. The whole outcome of him pulling over and peeing was strange, but I guess it's supposed to show how casual this is for him. He may not be peeing, maybe I'm wrong. Again, it's very hard to see certain things at certain times, but then he walks back over and you can see her in the car just panicking and screaming through the windshield. And yeah, she's fucking selling it. It's probably the best performance in the film.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I love watching her face as she's realizing what's going on. Like it just transcends into complete and utter fear when she realizes, oh shit. And it's one of those moments. It's like, God, this is another thing. You never know. You never know, like what's gonna happen, who you're gonna encounter. I mean, in one moment it's an innocent little thing where she thinks a police officer is helping her, and a couple minutes later she realizes she is fucked. And that can happen to so many people. I mean, look how many people over the years that's probably happened to, where they've gotten in a car with a hitchhiker, or a hitchhiker's gotten into someone's car or whatever, and you realize, oh fuck, I just made a decision that's probably going to cost me, my life. How horrifying would that be? And maybe him getting out of the car to pee or whatever, just taunting her. She can't get out. He tells her the handles are off. He's like, I wouldn't leave the handles on. And then we cut to probably, I would say, the most iconic scene in the film. This is the one you see a lot of memes and gifs of, and it is her death scene. She's chained in the basement. There is clear tape around her mouth. Her hands are above her, and it's grainy footage. And all of a sudden, we see this killer. How do you even describe this? Like, just he's on all fours. And he's moving like in a very ballet-like manner, but he's walking on all fours, so it seems really surreal and unnatural. Like I don't know if I'd be able to move as fluidly as he is on all fours, and he has this white mask. And I'm sorry, this is one of the creepiest images. This is terrifying. This whole scene as he comes up behind her, and she knows she can sense he's in the room, and she just starts wailing. And all of a sudden, he gets behind her and he stands up, and we see that the white mask is on the top of his head, and he lifts his head up, and he's wearing that fucking plague bird mask, beak mask. And I mean, this is quick, and you feel for this woman. She is terrified, and he has these two like nails secured to his finger, and he just Roger just nonchalantly just proceeds to plunge them into the side of her neck. This is probably the most graphic scene of the film, and the camera's on it the whole time as we see these nails sink into the side of her neck. She is reacting gutturally, I mean, believably. Blood is coming out of her mouth, and like she can't spit it out because the tape is on her mouth. I mean, this is horrifying. This scene, say what you want about the rest of the film, but this scene is quite traumatizing.
Oh God! I mean, this is the scene that made me want to see the film more than anything, because I have seen the scene circulated and again in GIF form so many times, and it truly is a very surreal and just almost distorted the way it's filmed. It almost has like a slight fisheye to it in a way, because her face is so up in the camera and he's from such a distance. But when he comes out like that, yeah, it doesn't feel natural. The way he's moving as he's inching in towards her, then he goes completely out of frame before rising up behind her like that and revealing that mask. It is truly horrific. Another thing I think is really scary, and I think it's like needles, almost like syringes that he has attached to his knuckles that he stabs into her jugular. And it's one shot. She's got plastic tape over her mouth through the whole thing. He gets up, he stabs it into her neck, and she begins to bleed out of her mouth and out of her nose. And I'm just kind of like shocked at the fact that they were able to like maintain the shot for so long without any inkling of there being blood in her mouth. Like there had to be tubing or something, but you don't see it, because when he stabs her, the blood just starts pouring out of all her orifices, and it's a really, really effective moment. I had seen it before in context on my TV. It is just as effective, and it truly is horrific. And it does definitely hold up, even though I have a ton of gripes with this film. This scene specifically is terrifying, and I will say that, like, I may not have enjoyed my overall experience, but I do think that this does deserve to be on a lot of those top 10 lists that it's made. It does deserve to be acknowledged for being a truly horrific sequence, because it is unlike anything I've seen before.
Yeah, it's nightmarish. I think that's another great way to describe it. Surreal and nightmarish. Just the way he moves creeps me the fuck out. I mean, it's ugh. But back to Felton, who basically gives us a little spiel about how this killer knows how to play profiles, so that he must have some knowledge of criminal profiling, because then he starts to read all of these different conflicting profilers from different profiling people. He's like, oh, one of them says the killer has to be a young white male between the ages of 20 and 25. Another one says he has to be a black male between the ages of 30 and 35. One says that he's intelligent. One says he's not. One says he's very independent. Other says he lives at home probably with his mother. So there's all of these different conflicting profiles that this killer has received, because he is so just he's playing the game really well. Then we cut to part 7, which is Found. We go back to Foley. Remember, Foley's the one who was executed. His old partner. And again, this is fascinating to me as well, because I would have not thought to do this. He's like, I went back to that map that was printed on MapQuest, and we had the FBI contact MapQuest, and we found out that only one map during the month for those specific directions, for that specific direction, was printed. So we were able to then get the IP address, and we located the house. And now we get like a full assault. The whole SWAT team closes in on this house. They storm in. We get a footage of the raid. They get inside. Of course, the house is empty. Agent Leonard comes back on. He's like, you know what? People ask me how we found him. I tell them, first, we did not find him. We found the house. Secondly, he wanted us to find him. And that's evidenced by the fact that there was no fingerprints in the entire house. We get footage of the agents finding the tapes in the closet and then a wooden box on the floor. And they open it up, Roger, and it is fucking Cheryl Dempsey laying still as a board in that dress, in that white mask, and she is still alive.
I mean, this was unexpected. I will say that. Like, I mean, I knew she was going to come into play at this point, some way, shape, or form. I didn't think she was going on a buddy comedy road trip with this guy, so I guess I should have expected that he left her behind. But them finding the house, kind of coming full circle to the beginning of this movie. We never saw that landlord again either. I was expecting this was going to be kind of a big to do, and they're like, and then one day they're like, we found the house, and they go inside. They're like, we found the tapes, and they're like, oh, here's the tapes, and they're like, oh, and we found this box, and they open it up, and Cheryl's inside, just looking wide eyed and confused, wearing that mask. And I mean, I'm happy she's alive. Well, not really. I'm actually. I'm actually very sad for her she's alive because she's completely destroyed emotionally and physically, the things this girl's been through. But like, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting the way they chose to handle it. It just, again, it seems like a moment that feels very rushed.
I don't think we've seen a character in a film that we've covered endure so much. And you do feel heartbroken for her. I mean, she's still alive, but then we get this another medical examiner, another one, who comes on and says that he has never seen a human being who was born and raised in the US that has endured the amount of torture that Cheryl has had. She's been burned. She's had teeth removed with, he says, either pliers or a hammer. What the fuck? Bones have been broken and then not allowed to set correctly. Sexual torture, including her having her genitals electrocuted. And he says, as he looks in the camera, things that are too horrible to mention. I mean, this girl, this poor thing. We also get, she's in the hospital. We do see her finally. Her face is all cut up. We see her in the hospital. We cut to this hospital pathologist, who I thought this was Pam, the FBI agent.
Oh no, this is Aretha Creep.
I know, but it looks like
a new gal.
It looks exactly like fucking Pam. She says that basically that poor Cheryl has become so accustomed to pain, extreme pain, that she could not live without the pain. So she was torturing herself in the hospital when no one was looking.
When I say things feel rushed, Troy, like, I mean, that sounds like a massive revelation for this character that we've been following for a while to like endure. And like, if you're going to tell me this, like, she's so used to pain that she can't exist without it. It seems like they really skirt by this. Like, I was expecting maybe, I don't know, to see her trying to inflict pain on herself, see her, see her going through some of this. We get some shots of her in the hospital, and photos of her, like you said, like with her horrible scars and everything. But they really do not explore the overall psychology of her character. They do have this very interesting interview segment coming up here very shortly, but it's very brief. And if you're going to tell me that she's so used to living in constant pain that she can't imagine living without it, like, I don't know, that just seems like a major thing to, like, a major revelation to have with this character, with very little to basically no exploration of that whatsoever.
Well, there's no time to explore it, Roger. This film is only an hour and 20 minutes, and we've actually talked almost twice as long about the film as it is long. So there's no time. But yeah, I mean, then we get some text on the screen from the filmmakers that tell us that after a month of lobbying the Dempseys, they finally get an interview with Cheryl. And now we cut to an interview with Cheryl. She's sitting on a couch. Her hair is done she has her hair in a braid. She's wearing a nice red velvet dress. She looks nervous as fuck. She keeps whispering, I don't know what you want me to say. They're like, how are you, Cheryl? I don't know what you want me to say. And they're like, isn't it nice living with seeing your mom again? And she's like, huh, yeah, I guess. I don't know what you want me to say. And then they ask her about, well, what was the man like that you live with? And she's like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And he's like, well, why? I don't know what you want me to say. And she's whispering. She's real mousy. Like, you can tell she's almost like a dog that's been conditioned to flinch anytime you step near it. And he tells her, you can say whatever you want. And there's this moment, Roger, and this that just freaked me. I mean, this moment gets when she reaches up to scratch herself. When she says, "I don't know what you want me to say," and we see that her hand is cut off, and she just has a nub.
And it's so quick too. I love it.
I know, and it's like we did not realize as the audience the amount of torture this woman went through because, like I said, we really only saw two things: her get punched and her get held underwater. But he apparently did all. I mean, cut her fucking hand off.
Oh yeah. And it's a good effect. Like it's brief enough that like when you see it, you're like, whoa. And yeah, oh my God. Like it really threw me. I wish we could have explored that more as well.
Well, when he tells her that she can say anything she can, Roger, she does. She says, "He loved me. I know I'm not supposed to say it and people don't want to hear it, but he did. He loved me. He took care of me. He didn't mean to leave me. He's gonna come back for me and I'm gonna be with him again." And then we just kind of get a freeze frame on her saying that and kind of half smiling to the camera when all of a sudden text comes on screen that tells us that 2 weeks later, after this interview, she committed suicide, Roger, and she left a note declaring her undying love for her master. What a horrible ending for this woman.
My God, this poor fucking woman.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy. It could have been a lot heavier if we would have got to know Cheryl a little bit more, but it's heavy. It's really heavy. We do now, Roger, what you missed. We get a news broadcast about her body being stolen from the grave. We even get that news guy. He's like, "Look at it. It's a real mess."
I mean, I saw this moment, but what I missed, I guess it's because it's filmed in a way that's so hard to tell what the fuck is going on that I just didn't realize that was Cheryl. And now, looking back in retrospect, it makes complete sense that that's her. But this has to go. This really, I gotta say, the way they filmed this movie is very dark and hard to see, and I really didn't know what was going on in the opening of that sequence. So now it makes complete sense. I will say I overlooked that. But come on, you got to give me a break here.
Well, I do give you a break because it's the very first scene in the film, and it's dark. We're not acclimated to how the film is shot. We really don't know what the story is, and it is dark, and we just kind of see this thing get pulled out. I could see where you wouldn't really make the connection. So I don't blame you. I don't blame you for not picking it up. We get the final moment with Agent Leonard, who says that, of course, his feeling is that the killer moved on and is killing elsewhere. I want to know what the fuck he's doing with Cheryl's body. Like, come on. I don't even want to think about it because we already know he has sex with corpses post mortem. So is he going to keep this body as like a sex doll? This dead Cheryl, this poor woman. Even in death, she can't get no peace.
Oh, absolutely. You know he's going to be fucking that body all night long. And that poor family, even though that mom can't act her way out of a paper bag. I mean, come on, give this family some fucking peace. Can you imagine after being reunited with your daughter who's been missing for a multitude of years, she's so physically and emotionally scarred that she then chooses to profess her love for her abuser before taking her own life. You bury her body, you mourn her, and then you find out within days that her body has been physically like robbed from the grave. Like that poor fucking family. No wonder that woman can't act. She's in fucking shock after all of
She's in
this.
trauma. She has trauma, Roger. And then we get Simon, the return of Simon, the little videographer guy that says, what I find interesting is there was 2,400 tapes that were registered, but actually 27 of them were missing. And he ponders what could have been on those tapes. Is it stuff that was too personal for him to share? Did it show his face? Or was it something more horrific than what were on the other ones? And then we get the final thing from Agent Leonard, who says, "You know what? One place we'll be watching is if this documentary ever plays in theaters, we will be there because I guarantee you our killer is going to be in the theater watching this."
That seemed like like that ending. I was like, okay, you're really trying to be self-aware in what you're doing here. And I mean, I don't know. I'm so frustrated with this movie up to this point that like that little like kind of like wink at that audience, like very self-aware acknowledgement. it didn't do anything for me. It's not necessarily the note I wanted to end this movie on, a talking headshot with this old guy who I've been listening to babbling for the last, hour and 20 minutes off and on, talking about all this shit. Like, it just felt like a very anticlimactic conclusion. I'm happy that they brought Simon back, because I thought his relationship to the material was one of the most interesting aspects. I really wish that he could have been one of the narrators throughout the whole thing, because he is someone who has seen every fucking tape. And when you bring up this idea of there being missing tapes, like, that's like a surprising thing to throw out at the very end of the movie. As a final, like, kind of revelation, unless maybe they were intending for like a sequel or something. I don't know, but to suggest that there's 27 tapes missing and not really do anything with that and just leave it so open ended, it feels like kind of just like yet another wasted opportunity, or something that's just not going anywhere. And that's my big thing as we conclude this film, is there's so many aspects of this movie, facts that get brought up, side stories, subplots, concepts, character traits, things that get brought up that seem like they're brought up for expositionary purposes or just shock factor alone, and then they breeze past them. They never bring them back up again, and it just feels like I don't know. I guess it's a perfect way to end this movie, because it feels just kind of random.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of the film does leave you with a lot of questions and a lot of implausibilities. Again, I think that when the film hits, it hits really impactful for me. And then, like, the final image of the film that before the credits roll is an image of Cheryl as a little girl. We got a lot of videotapes of her at the beginning of the film dancing around as a little kid, and we get one at the end. The end credits roll, and then if you stay to the very end of the end credits, there is a small little post credit scene of a woman he has tied up in his basement. So we know he's continuing killing, and he tells her she can live as long as she doesn't blink. So we have the camera lingering on her face for quite a while as she's like screaming and trying not to blink, and then it cuts. I understand your feelings about the film. I understand. Trust me. I understand the film is full of flaws. I get it. It's full of things that don't make a lick of sense. It's full of side people who can't act. With that said, I mean, I'm still heavily intrigued by this film whenever I watch it, and I don't know if it's the true crime angle for me. Some of the scenes, like I said, they hit really hard. The whole, even though it's rushed, the whole thing with Cheryl being stalked, that makes me feel really uneasy. Of course, the infamous death scene with the poor English woman getting stabbed in the throat. That, I mean, to me, that's going to be one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. So it's one of those films, Roger, where I guess I know the flaws, I recognize the flaws, but I still really like the film quite a bit and feel like when it hits really hard.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few scenes here that do hit really hard. I guess for me, it's just they're not very many scenes that do. Like, there's a few of them that I really, really enjoyed, but getting to those scenes, oof, it was a struggle for me. And so I definitely appreciate, especially knowing you have your love for true crime, and I know that's like a big kind of driving force for you. So it makes complete sense to me that you would enjoy this film. For me, as a casual horror film fan, as a film goer, coming into this, I really expected one experience. I got something totally different. And yeah, it just left me feeling very unsatisfied. But I can see why fans of true crime or of mockumentaries might gravitate towards this. I think for me, it's been a few mockumentaries that we've covered lately, or found footage style films that I've really enjoyed. And I think this film kind of brought me back to the conclusion of why it's not necessarily my favorite subgenre. Because when it's not in the hands of an exceptionally skilled crew, and I include the talent in that, it can kind of go off the rails quite quickly. And truly, it just comes down to for me, just, I mean, I can't believe they got together an ensemble of so many untalented people to be in one movie. I guess it's because they were all such small cameo roles that there wasn't room for a star in this. But the believability factor was missing for me, and because of that, and I know it's a movie, but I need to at least buy that aspects of this could be real. And I never did, and so yeah, I'm bummed out that I didn't like it. I really, really fucking wanted to, but it was a big letdown.
I'm with you on the acting for sure. I remember when I first saw the film, that was the first thing that that was like, okay, this is going to be kind of rough. But again, I thoroughly was engaged watching this film twice. I watched it twice to prepare for this episode, and it's a film that I will revisit again in the future, and I will still recommend to people that they watch it. If someone asks me for like a film that's going to creep them out if they haven't seen it, I'm definitely going to suggest it. But I totally understand where people come off saying that the film is cold, it's detached, things like that. I get it because as we mentioned, there's really no character to root for. There's no like kind of linear plot to follow. It's but again, goddamn that some of these scenes. So guys, let us know what camp you are in because we have two differing opinions. Are you with Roger, who unfortunately did not like the film, or are you with me that finds the film quite quite creepy, quite effective? And I'm a fan of it. So let us know. Let us know who you side with in this particular interview because it's very rare that we don't fully agree on a film. So it'll be interesting to see what the fans have to say, Roger.
Well, I'm getting prepared to have some eggs thrown at me because I've seen the fan base outcry for this film. It seems like they really like it.
I know there's been a few people that don't like. I posted that I was watching it, and I got a few comments from people that said that they didn't like the film. So they're out there. So let's just see what the consensus is. With that, I think we should probably wrap this up. I did not think we were going to talk so long about this film, but lots of intriguing ideas and things to pick apart with this particular one. But Roger, why don't you quickly, because the next film is your choice, why don't you quickly tell the listeners what our next film is, and then we can let them go for the night.
I'm going for something a little totally different with the next one. I mean, it is another modern offering. It's a 2016 offering, but it is definitely not a mockumentary. It is a Lovecraftian sci-fi horror that is exceptionally independent. Though I don't know if you know it when you watch it, Troy. I'm really curious to hear what you think about this one because I don't think you've seen it. But it's The Void. Have you ever seen The Void, Troy?
I have not. I have not.
Well, let me tell you, I'm somebody who got the chance to see this film in theaters, though it was an independent limited release, and it was a really cool experience getting to see this on the big screen. So I'm really excited to revisit this film. I have not watched it since. I'm going to hold on my thoughts and opinions on this movie because I often get too excited. But listeners, if any of you have seen The Void, get ready because that will be our next review on Dark Knight of the podcast.
Awesome. And I'm wondering if it's going to be a scenario similar to this where I picked a title that I was excited about and you ended up not liking it. Is it going to be that scenario or am I going to love The Void? I can't wait. I've heard things about it. I've avoided it all these years. So I'm super excited that you picked it because it gives me an opportunity to watch it. So with that, guys, thank you for sticking with us for 2.5 hours to talk about the Poughkeepsie Tapes. And next week we will be filling your void.
Yeah, yes, we will. But good way to take it out, Troy.
Good night.
Good night.